please rise to a pledge of allegiance. The flag is to the back of the room.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being conducted in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. The Verona Board of Education passed a resolution at its meeting held on January 8, 2013. The meeting set forth the schedule of its regular meetings, which resolution was within 7 days of passage. The schedule was sent to the Verona City Times, the Star Ledger, the Herald News, the Township of Verona, and the Verona Education Association. Postings of this meeting setting forth the time, location, agenda were posted in each of Verona's 6 schools, the board office, and the town hall. This posting was also sent to the Gov newspapers, all SCA presidents, and SCA liaisons. The Verona Board of Education operates under a consent agenda format. Any board member has a right to have an item pulled to be voted upon or discussed separately. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public present. Mr. Elliott?
Here.
Mr. Spordell?
Here.
Mr. Bolino?
Here.
Mr. Yunus?
Here.
Mr. Quattro?
Here. Okay, we have a presentation night tonight with folks from Mylan, ProMedia, and EI to educate the board on the referendum project that has been under evaluation and engineering for the past couple of months. But before we go into that, do we have any public comment or question on anything on the agenda itself? None? All right, so we'll go right into the presentation. Then we have a couple of other items of business to get to as well. Committee reports, we just have to answer them. Am I starting? Okay, in order to frame it for the board and for members of the public and those watching on the VTV broadcast, the purpose of the presentation tonight is to get the board aligned on the elements of the referendum project elements, which, as a reminder, encompass 4 things, which we'll get into in a second: buildings remediation, technology improvements, security improvements, and the field remediation. And hopefully,
You just have to slide it on.
give it some juice. And hopefully, through tonight and going forward, we'll have board opportunity to question the elements of the project and to make sure that they're sensible, consistent with our goals and objectives. And if there are things that we need further debate or dialogue about, or further research about, then we can define those things. The first page here is just a simple reminder that in our current strategic plan, consistent with our last strategic plan, the new one goes 2013 to 2018, strategy number 6 is oriented around providing sustainable and functional buildings, both in terms of the infrastructure of the buildings, on the technology, the mechanical systems, etc., as well as the bricks and mortar components of it. And you can see through the results set on the bottom that we're pretty clear to include technology, safety, as well as capital improvements and maintainability of all the facilities. And that also includes our fields and outside grounds, as well as the interiors of the building. In terms of the summary and approach that we've followed, and this is a broad brush definition. It's not meant to be an accounting of all of the nickels and dimes, but just to set some understanding of terminology used. In 2005, when we did the last referendum, one of the things that the board did at the time was a needs assessment that was done by LAN, the architects that we contracted with back then. And the needs assessment was a full inventorying, if you will, of the district, all the buildings, all the grounds, to determine what facilities would need to be improved, what space we needed to have add, and as well as some aesthetic improvements as well. The total of that needs assessment study came to a preliminary cost, and this was an engineer-architect estimate. It was not ever put to bid or anything. But to give a perspective, it was north of 65, close to $70 million. Back then, we prioritized out of that needs assessment what we felt were the most important and highest priority around building safety, building maintenance, and space needs. And the total referendum that we passed back then was a $33 million bond, and that, with $33 million, was essentially the first chunk of that, what that needs assessment identified. The current plan and the process that we've been through since the spring has been to take the highest priorities that are still in that needs assessment, because none of the highest priorities presumably fix themselves, as much as we would have hoped, along with any new items that have been identified by Mr. McDivitt, our Buildings and Grounds Director, since then. So if you take the highest priorities from the needs assessment plus new issues that we've had to deal with, put them all together, that's sort of the genesis of where we started. And it was very apparent to the board coming out of 2012 that there was no way to fund the degree of remediating those sorts of things out of our operating budget, and a bond would be the only way to do it. We engaged EI and Mylan and ProMedia, and they'll come up in a second and go through their parts of it, to evaluate the set of projects that the board and administration put in front of them, again, based on the priorities that we had. And those encompassed fixing buildings, which is inclusive, again, of bricks and mortar, some repairs and upgrades to kitchens, some other select interior space, walkways, masonry, etc., as well as mechanical systems, ventilation, boilers, heating, plumbing, etc. All of that is categorized as building repairs. The second part of the scope was extending our technology network. We do benefit from fiber throughout the town. We do benefit from fiber to the buildings, but within the buildings, we're still very much a old-fashioned wired infrastructure, and the need in the coming 5 years, certainly with Park and all the rest, is the need to extend our network infrastructure and bandwidth to the outside world from within the buildings as well. Third, we identified improving building security as a priority. Building security can mean lots of things to lots of people. We've defined that broadly as saying improve the degree to which we keep intruders out, improve the degree to which we keep students in, and improve our ability to secure space when school is not in session but the buildings are open. For example, with basketball game going on, or board event meetings, whatever, where proper protocol would probably mean these days to close off parts of the building so that visitors can get to where they need to go, but without wandering into parts of the building that they shouldn't be wandering. And lastly, remediation of the high school field, and we put that separate and away from the just building repairs, because the high school field in and of itself is sort of a saga, and an ongoing saga at that. We had French Perillo do an engineering study coming out of the spring on various alternatives on remediating the field, and just as a reminder, what they came up with were 3 alternatives. One alternative was to get the town council, the county of Essex, and the state of New Jersey to condemn the field, which means wrap it up with fencing and just pretend it's no longer there. We thought that was just a bad option for the town, the kind of quality town that we have. At the other end of the spectrum, the choice was to dig it all up, remove all of the fill that's in there, fill it properly, put a proper retaining wall, etc. The cost, as estimated by FPA at the time, again, it's an engineering estimate, not a bid estimate, was north of $6 to $8 million. We thought that was prohibitively expensive. And the middle ground was to remediate it along the lines of what you can hear tonight, which was a much lower number, about $2 million, I think, for the basis of the field and all the rest. And that's what got us to tonight. We had a preview of what the scope was, what the scope is, and the elements of the project when Mylan and EI came a couple of weeks back. And the takeaway from that meeting was to get into much more detail. The board has been provided binders with not only the updated diagrams, but with all kinds of data delineated on spreadsheets that break down the projects, both in terms of buildings, types of work, et cetera, so we can get into what drives the numbers and get to some sensible decisions. Okay? Turn it over to you guys.
I just want to generally introduce who will be speaking tonight. I'm Dennis Milam, Principal of Milam Architectural Group. And with me is Kurt Schmidt, Senior Architect from the firm, and also Richard Basta, who is the Senior Vice President for EI. Also joining us, hopefully, is Robert Walsh, who was caught in traffic, unfortunately. He's a civil and environmental engineer. He will discuss any details on the field work, although if he does not make it by the time we get to that point, Mr. Basta has said that he would also cover that issue. Kurt Schmidt will be handling most of the presentations except for the field remediation. And any specific questions on the mechanical system, although Kurt will attempt to answer them from his involvement in it, Mr. Basta can probably fill in a little better on mechanical systems. And of course, any questions on the field will be answered by, detailed questions being answered by Mr. Walsh when he gets here. So I'll ask Kurt to start.
Good evening, everyone. Just to give you a quick rundown of the referendum timeline, that's a slide that's on the screen at this point. Back in the spring of this year till November, our firm and EI and other district personnel developed a list of potential referendum items, as President Quattrochi mentioned. We've already submitted applications to the Department of Education for a ROD grant consideration. And at this point in time, DOE is reviewing those submittals. The district should receive ROD grant award letters sometime in the following month. I know that apparently there have been a lot of applications made, and I guess they're just taking a little bit longer. We're hoping to get it earlier. There appears to be in December at this time. That will be followed in January, a letter, assuming that this referendum moves forward and the information given tonight is favorable and we're instructed to continue in this path. A letter will be sent to the county clerk requesting them to conduct a special referendum election, which would be held in March. After that, we will develop drawings and bid documents to go out for bidding and hope that some of this would be awarded during the summer this coming year. And some of the construction may begin this fall or into the following year. The next item that we're going to discuss would be the technology upgrades and summary. And Mr. Brian Berg from ProMedia is here to discuss those elements and give more that information. Brian?
So I'm Brian Berg with ProMedia Technologies. ProMedia has had a relationship with the school district for quite some time now. We've helped with the private fiber that was spoken about earlier, which you folks were actually pretty early in putting in a private fiber network. And that basically gets your connections between the school at a pace where you can just add equipment and increase the bandwidth. And if you think about construction on the roads out there, and when you get more of a population, you need more roads, more lanes. That's exactly what technology is all about. So, in the beginning, it used to be you used to have about 10 megs between schools. Now everybody's fighting to get to at least 100. And you guys are at a gig, and you've been there, and you're capable of going up to 10 gig between your schools just by adding modules. So that is a real big positive for you folks, and like I said, you've been in that situation for some time. If you take what you have back to inside the buildings, your cabling is outdated, which puts you in a tough situation to the desktop, and you really don't have much wireless to speak of. So I started working with the school district specifically on this slide, most of the items here, a couple of years ago. Really talking about needing to upgrade your switches and needing to determine where you need to focus on getting your infrastructure upgraded. We came in here and said all your wiring just needs to be updated, you'd be talking about, another $1 million of just cabling probably. So we're not talking about that, but what we are talking about switch upgrades and putting in a wireless infrastructure. Wireless infrastructures these days, they're managed by a controller, and it's a necessity so that the more and more laptops and the new computers that you get that have wireless are going to be able to handle, the infrastructure is going to be able to handle, and you hear one-to-one initiatives, things like that, bring your own device. So we put proposals together for that. I think there's some numbers we'll be sharing in just a few minutes. And that takes care of really bullet one. Bullet number two is there's 5 labs in the district. Again, you have the old cabling. We're looking to upgrade that cabling. And that's simply just upgrading it and then connecting that to the new switches. The third bullet is about the phone system. Right now, you have a phone system that I believe is about 5 years without any upgrades. It's no longer, the software is no longer supported, and it's just time. So we included that into the upgrade as well. And then we also talked about putting classroom phones into the high school to basically put, I don't want to say patch, but basically put the improvements into the intercom system that you have. It's not, I believe the phones aren't working today. Backup solution, a nominal topic really, but you need to have a good backup system for your data center. And right now that's lacking. We're talking about having off-site backup as well, so God forbid you have a disaster at the one building, you have your backup in the other. And that budget came to just under $700,000. And one of the main things I wanted to really get across here is, although this is not a discussion about park readiness, all of these improvements will get you into a situation where you'll be park readiness from an infrastructure standpoint. Not from your computers, not from, we're not talking about the computer part of it. We're not talking about your bandwidth out to the world, but everything else would be park readiness based on what we just talked about there.
Right,
So-
just a question. So
Yes.
on the phone system, so we currently have classroom phones everywhere but the high school?
No, basically you have the old intercom systems throughout all your schools,
Yeah.
but in the high school, I believe they're having a lot of issues with those phones. So your choice would be to either replace them with, I'm going to say the older type technology, the old intercom systems, or because you have an IP phone system, you can just put IP phones in there.
Right, just run that on that.
Exactly.
So, but that's specific to the high school, so we would still not have phones in classrooms other than high school?
That's
Is
correct.
it-
Well, not in the classrooms, that's correct. Not with what we're talking about here.
We don't have the same type, different type. We have an intercom system that works, that functions in every school, right?
Yeah, we have classroom phones everywhere, John.
We do.
The problem here at the high school is more related to the wiring.
Right,
It's
okay.
old phone cable.
So with this, we'll have phones in all classrooms, essentially.
You already do, it's just dysfunctional here. at the high
Dysfunctional here at the high school, right, so we'll be back to
That'll work very
phones
well.
already.
Right.
And the backup solution, that's for our administrative systems and all that, our email.
That's for your, basically your data
systems,
center,
and all
absolutely.
that, right, okay, got it. And then in terms of park readiness, just to, so when do we need to be ready for the first park events?
You're saying spring of 2015.
The end of the next school year, right? So in that, what would we need in terms of computers? This would cover the network.
This would cover the network. We would need to bring in wireless devices. Like we could buy some laptops and share them between the buildings and just grow that eventually. Each year grow that piece and maybe replace desktops with laptops, things like that.
Right, from an, so just to educate all of us on the board, so in the spring of 2015, in a district of 2,200 students, how many students need to have a computer in front of them at any one time? Like how many computers are there?
Well, in the elementary schools, it's really not a big problem because there's a lab, there's not that many kids that are going to take it. In the middle school, it's the biggest problem. We have about 700 kids and really only 25 to 40 computers that we can cycle through. So we would need to bring in some wireless devices in the middle school to be able to test on the park system. But we don't have the network for it now, so this would be step one. Step two would be to bring in the wireless devices.
Right, but I mean, so since the wireless devices though are needed in 2015, how would we buy it?
We're gonna have to budget, we're gonna have to put some of that kind of stuff into the budget, or lease, something like that. Maybe a lease program thing, Ms. Nardino and I have been speaking about that already.
Could that be put into the fund?
We could, it's just, if you want to say something.
Yeah, I mean, you typically wouldn't want to put something like that in a referendum because computers are something that you really need to turn over.
You want to have it for 20 years.
Yeah.
I could do a 5-year bond for that piece of it, right? I mean, we know.
How many, roughly, how many are you talking about?
I'm just thinking about it, if we have to go buy 300 computers, we've never bought, I've been on the board long enough, we've never bought 300 computers.
That's 300.
We bought 150 the last 2 years, so we would probably buy our normal 150 that we do to get rid of the computers that are obsolete, and then another 100 wireless devices. Say 100 laptops or something along those, probably laptops.
You could test the time at 56, for example, right? So that New Jersey Act, so Parker did the same thing, but on the computers. How many kids in middle school will be testing the first week of New Jersey Act at Parker?
It's gonna be like a window, it's a long time. Remember, they're working all this out, so they don't have all the final details. Their recommendation is that you have one for 2 kids, one computer for 2 kids, and for the middle school, you do 350. But that's their recommendation. There's other, that's the Cadillac, I guess.
But what I'm saying is, they're still going to be testing on certain grades, certain weeks. Right, like the doctor said, okay, 5 through 9, or 3 through 9 test this week. It's still going to be
Right.
the tier process.
There's a window.
Yeah, we would still have, our kids will change, the window might change, but our kids will still be, supposed to be X amount of kids, 3, 6, 7, 8, that will be testing.
Right.
The reason why I raise the point is only because if we're gonna be faced with buying hundreds of devices in a coming budget year, and given the last, I'm not sure that we have that much wiggle room in the budget to pull it off. That's why I raised the question.
You really wouldn't want to finance it with a bond. There's costs associated with the bond sale. It would probably defeat any savings or make it economically not feasible for you to do it by bond. You're better off doing it by leasing. There's lesser costs with leasing than there is with bonding. And you can only go out 3 years, I think. Maybe able to go up to 5 on a lease, if you can go up to 5 on a lease. So leasing would be the way to go because you would save money.
Yeah, as long as we have we should have I mean, if we could do it in the finance committee or we could do it in education, we need to, the point is, I think we need to have a plan on how we're going to provide 300 computers.
Well, we have a lease that's expiring, don't we?
One more payment next year.
All right, in a year,
That's the year that
the
we
lease
have-
payment that goes away.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, we have one more payment in the same year that we'd be making a new purchase.
Yeah, but you could put the payment off until the following year.
Yeah.
You don't have to start paying the first year that you buy the equipment. You can put the payment off till the second year.
All right, so it's only, so I guess my point is we should get a schedule of how many devices we're gonna need to get. And if we only need them for like a 1-month period of time, maybe we can just go off and rent a bunch of computers for 1 month. And my guess is this whole park thing is gonna create a whole cottage industry on this kind of stuff, because districts that are now on top of their game are gonna be in a tough spot.
Right.
So,
So John, a quick question is, kind of piggyback on it. So if we make this investment, that gives us the infrastructure, throughput to be park ready, and then if we spend arguably $150,000 worth of computers, that would then we're fully park ready?
for the first year, first implementation.
Right. So then we're set.
Well, the only other consideration would be the ISP bandwidth. You would need to upgrade that as well, which is not, again, it's a monthly cost.
That's not that's a monthly.
That's an operating
But
unit.
that's the internet, right?
That's the internet bandwidth.
So I guess if we could
Those are the 3 components, if I may.
And then we'll be park ready.
Yes.
Right, so we should just, like, I guess the question is, we should just delineate, so we're clear, like, what's in the future of spending for computers, because, year 1 of park, year 2, there's gonna be no cost, et cetera, right? And the only reason why we're buying this many computers is to do park assessments, which is only once a year.
right? Like, if it wasn't for Park, we would arguably, we probably would be talking about wireless and the rest, but we probably would not be talking about buying a couple hundred computers. I don't think we would just buy computers, you know, that kind of inventory, no. I think we would just keep replacing what we have, maybe add some more, but, yeah, I agree.
What about the idea of students waiting on devices to the classroom?
It's good, I think it's great, and we need this first, but that's not really for Park.
Okay.
Because you can't, they have to be able to lock down, it's pretty complicated.
That's fine.
The whole thing has to, because nobody can't search on the internet for answers. So it's a pretty, I think there's gonna be a lot of security.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question, it's something I do, and I don't want to be in the spot either, but, looking at the plan, what else would you add? If you look, is there any component of this where you're thinking, here's, in best practice, we haven't thought of that you're itching to share?
Yeah, you know, when I've been talking with the administration, your data center is just one other area that we really were not addressing here. But again, you're leasing your current, you're financing your current data center that will be coming up, and you'll more than likely roll that over. So is that infrastructure? You know, that's arguable. I think that's more, again, operating type of scenario. But you got your data center, you have your cabling, and by the way, these are all things that, you know, especially when we talk referendum, nobody ever really talks about technology until the end. So the fact that you have it, you know, pretty much in the forefront here is a very positive thing. But again, just to stay on focus, you got your network electronics, your firewalls, all of that, in the call PMP at the network closet, and then you have your cabling. So if you have a lot of cabling out there that's Cat5 that you're going to need to rely on, then that would need to be upgraded. But again, I think strategically that the administration is looking at ways to, you know, just upgrade what they need to, and then add a wireless infrastructure that they can depend on. So as the new computers come in, they'll be wireless and they'll be using that infrastructure.
So we're going to be kind of shifting from the hardware cable in the wall plug-in to kind of usurping that with a wireless system, essentially. So we could spend $1 million to recable the whole district, right?
Right.
Or spend the $671 without $1 million on it and have that same effect, but for wireless devices.
You're building an infrastructure that's a hybrid, right? So the cabling, the second bullet we have, which is the cabling for the labs, those would be cable. And that makes sense, right? They're fixed computers, they don't need to be wireless. You know, the one thing about wireless is, as wonderful of a technology as it is, it's shared bandwidth. Whereas when you have a cable going to a computer, you're getting a gigabit dedicated bandwidth to that one computer. So the wireless has really become a necessity for the fact that, I mean, with an iPad, you can't plug an iPad into a cable. So yes, it's a hybrid solution that will work through the district, and many schools are doing it as well.
Last question.
Is it, let me just piggyback on this, is it basically upgrading and maintaining the wired network we have, and then growing in the wireless? In other words, we're gonna keep our 600 or so devices, keep upgrading those, but grow with wireless.
I would agree with that comment.
And this is a curiosity question too. Why not just spend $1 million, upgrade all the cable? What would be the downside of that?
The downside of that would be just the reliance on wireless now. Because, you know, without a strong wireless infrastructure, I mean, you know, just about everything we own today is connected through wireless. So it would kind of be keeping in that.
Another piece is the space issue. If we need to bring in 100 computers and we need to now create 4 new labs, the old traditional lab, we need 4 rooms. Whereas this way we can have labs that are portable.
Yeah, I'm not arguing for it, I'm just trying to just all perspectives.
I got you, I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, yeah.
That in there.
Definitely. Thank you.
All right, so any other questions on the technology piece of it? Again, I have 2 slides that I'm doing. My primary reason for being here is to really address any questions that you might have. Technology, you know, it's the roads, in my opinion, without, you know, doing a referendum without doing improvements to your technology would be, you big mistake. And it doesn't seem like that's the way we're going, and it looks like you've given it a lot of thought. The next subject is a completely different type of conversation, and that's around security. So I've worked again with the district to talk about what security visions they have. They've asked me, what are other schools doing? So the reason why ProMedia is involved in this is, today's security systems go over your network as well. You can go out and buy old analog systems and put those in and do work, but if you don't want to make investments, we highly recommend that you consider an IP system. So we talked, the counts that you're actually seeing here were counts that were given to you by the district. Through, again, back and forth conversations. Do you put cameras in every hallway, so that in the event of a shooter, let's say, you can track that shooter through every hallway. Obviously everybody would love to be able to do that. You're talking about just a dramatic amount of cameras. At a minimum, you want them on your front entrances. You want to know who's entered and who's entering your building. You want to get a good facial shot of who's entering the building. So that's pretty much what you're seeing here in the security side of it. Cameras, door access. On the fourth bullet, I put in visitor management systems. That was something that I spoke to the school about when somebody comes. I'm a visitor to a lot of school districts, and pretty much I go in there and I fill out a little red tag, put my name on it, slap it on, and I'm sent off to meet the people. But who am I, really, So a visitor management system takes a driver's license, scans it, goes out to a predator list, state list, and you can add, parents that maybe aren't supposed to be in the building, if there's restraining orders. So I recommended that we put one of those in each of your schools. That's the fourth bullet. Moving on, door access is a swipe card, and that would be on strategic doors throughout the district. Then the next one is monitoring. I wasn't here for your last meeting, but I understand there was a lot of discussion about how do we track doors that are left open. And the way that you do that is you put contacts on the doors, you wire them back, and through the software, it's actually the same software as the door access system, you're able to see what doors have been left open. You can also get alarms that the door's been left open for a certain amount of time. You get the 30 seconds, 45 seconds. You can get somebody like Paul can get an email saying the door's been left open, and that's a way to do that. And I think that was the last bullet. So you can see the budget for security can get up there very quickly, and it's really a discussion about what do you need in your district. And I'll close by saying it really comes down to policies and procedures to have good security in the schools, and then the cameras and the door access. Those are tools to help you with your policies and procedures. It's not the end all. One more point too is this system will record for anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks, and it rides over that. So you can always go back to the video and see what happened or trace an event.
So your system will record 239 cameras?
Yes.
And store that for 2 weeks?
Yes. Yeah, it's designed, it's a server and software solution. So the servers are built with storage, software, actually runs everything.
Brian, just a question on the swipe door access. So that's 34 doors throughout the 6 buildings.
That's correct.
Right? And then how would those doors define? Like what makes those 34 doors viable for the swipe access?
So those again were told to me. I asked that same question, and I said, which doors? Usually it's anywhere from 2 to 4 doors per school, depending, where the teachers enter the parking lot. Paul, were you the person that actually? So you might be the person to answer this. But which doors are being used the most? Which doors do you want? In this building, certainly the board office, the main entrance, and then possibly 1 or 2 others.
So that's for folks that need to get, is that for staff that need to get into the building from outside in the middle of the school building? Is that
right? It's for staff.
Yeah, because there are times when the staff say, like at the middle school, the phys ed teachers go out the back gym door. That door has to close, and then for them to get back in, those teachers are going to swipe.
We'll take a class outside.
Exactly.
On the contact monitoring, you said, one of the way I've always had in my head about, like I mentioned in the opening there about security, is keep the bad guys out, keep the good kids in, and that security building. In terms of the contact monitoring, you mentioned if the door's left open and somebody can get an email. Can we get, is there an alarm that can go off when the door is open, period?
The alarm, like a local alarm or an alarm in an off, like,
Well, either way, you know, the thought there is, one of the things that comes up in dialogue is, you hate to think that a student in one of the younger grades can get permission to go to the office, for example, and instead of going to the office, goes out the other door.
Right.
And you have no idea what that is. We've had, unfortunately, we've had incidents where a student was sent down to meet with a parent and left the classroom and decided that that was not going to be a good meeting, and maybe leaving the building would be a better alternative.
right.
Nobody even knew that the student left. There's no way to know if the door was today. So we need to protect that, right? Is there a way that an alert can sound so that you know that a student has, that somebody has opened that door when it was not supposed to have been opened, or was not card swiped? At the same time, here at the high school, and part of the dialogue was, well, you know, that would be a difficult thing to manage because students are opening the doors to let their friends in all the time. The alarms would be going crazy. My response to that is that make the alarms louder and make the penalties stiffer, because you're not supposed to be letting people in from the outside. It's the whole reason why the doors are locked, right, and why you have a visitor system. So is there a way that we can be alerted, what are the various ways you can be alerted that a door has been opened that was not meant to be opened?
Okay, so this system that I'm talking about is not the type of system where you open up, you know, it says if you open the door, it'll be alarmed.
It's
All
not.
right? It's not that. So you can get those. Those are, you know, they're just local to that
That's just
door.
where the alarm is
Right.
physically part of the door.
Right. But
Doesn't-
if you're in the main office, you may or may not even know that that's happening, right? Somebody nearby is probably gonna have to react and be part of that policy.
Or in a building like this where there's 20-odd sets of doors, you won't know which one it is.
Exactly.
You see the doors.
But what this system will do is it's basically it's software running on computers. So who's gonna have access to those computers? Whose desks are gonna get those alarms? That's how you're gonna have to build in the, you know, the procedures for who's gonna be alarmed and what people are gonna do.
So maybe to refine the question, so what's the capability of the system that's included here? So if the door is open when it's not
Mhm.
supposed to be open, what will happen?
We will
I'm
work.
thinking something faster than an email, right?
Well, when you say faster than an email, I mean, so the software can pop right up on the screen. So if you're thinking about the main office, you can have it come right up on the screen as soon as something happens, that door is left open. How do you know, and then have her pick up a phone or whatever, and have somebody check it, however you want to handle it that way. But again, it's software, so we can work with you to design it so that it's going to go off on.
Would the software be able to pair the door with that particular camera that's on that door?
It does.
It does. So we would know if the alarm went off, I can zero in on that
Right.
camera.
Mhm.
At least get a view from that.
Right.
But at that point, the door is open, something like that, something like that.
Exactly. You know, again, it's a tool. So it's really now how are you going to use it?
I'm just trying to understand,
Yeah,
on a scale of
no,
1 to 10, like what degree of risk
Exactly.
am I making?
Right.
And the email will go to whoever we so choose to go to, or
That's correct.
it doesn't, that is not a separate computer that will go to, or a separate workstation will go to. It'll go to whoever's email we so choose to
Yeah.
designate.
So what you have is the ability to have client software on computers. So you can first dictate who's got computers in front of them for most of the day, that if something happens, I want that computer to alert. And so that's one way. The other thing that it can do is shoot that notification to as many people as you want it to go to. And then all of a sudden, they can just, you know, pick up their smartphone and see what's going on. Door number 19 in high school is open, and then that person can, you know, make a decision of what has to be done.
I just want to make a comment. We have a whole team of experts for technology buildings and grounds of field. It seems like the one spot we don't is security. Remember, we talked about this a while back, and we chose not to spend money on that when it was brought to our attention. But we're going to spend $1 million on security improvements. So I'm just having a difficult time, and I'm not trying to discredit the work that's been done, but just getting behind the $1 million at this point in full support, because like John said, on a scale of 1 to 10, where does it fall? I can kind of understand that perspective for the project, and on a scale of 1 to 10, where does it fall for 101 of the Kingston retired districts, let's say. So I know that's not your job to answer it. This is more of a comment to the board as the public as a whole when it comes to this. I can confidently say, yes, you have EI here, yes, there's Milan here, yes, there's media here. We didn't just decide in terms of our technology infrastructure, kind of putting our heads together what we're going to fix. We went to the expert to do it. So I'm concerned that we didn't do that with security at this point.
Well, you're gonna, so we had the option of hiring a security consultant to come in and do this work. And as a board, we said, let's not do that. So it'd be difficult today to say, well, we chose not to do it, and now we're mad at ourselves for not.
Yeah, I'm
What we
concerned.
did instead, remember what we did instead. The reason why we said no was because we engaged Chief Huber, right, who has access to county, state, and federal guidelines and recommendations for school safety and security that came down post-Connecticut incident. So there was value in that, we felt. There were some community residents that had backgrounds and experience in it, some with the federal government that were very, very helpful. We got the federal guidelines and federal recommendations that have been banted around. It's all still in pilot phase, and all was effective in that. And that's where the list of ideas came up. And there's one thing that's not on the page of security, because we put it into the building part. On this page here, we're talking about the cameras, which is surveillance, and see what's going on, or what happened in the past. We have a vision management system to better control and check and record visitors coming in, the rest. And then we have the contact monitoring now, which is improving over the last time that we know when the door is open. The other thing that's in the building part is I guess we call it the vestibule area, where in each of the buildings that so when you get buzzed in, you don't get in, you get into the building so you don't have rain on your head.
The trap door.
But somebody's got to come and meet you and still let you in the rest of the way, which is the third element of things.
Yes, and I definitely agree. I'm just not sure how, during this conversation, contacting 97 doors and cameras, so that perspective wasn't part of the previous discussion with all those people. It just kind of grew organically over the past meeting or so. I'm just trying to see make sure, we'll refocus us and say, okay, if we went to engage those individuals with those backgrounds, are we aligning what we're doing to that, just like we're aligning the referendum improvements to the most pressing and dramatic needs in our district?
You're saying,
right?
So you're saying if we sort of had a simple meeting with those folks,
Yeah.
part of that group,
Would
say,
they
take a
say-
look at this and put a stamp on the program.
Exactly. Yes, that's what I was saying. I think that might be a good idea, because they might say, wait a second, the million I had a different vision as a council here as of what that would be than what it is now.
Well, if you like it, we'd like to move it.
Sure.
Some of this was brought to the committee. The committee actually reviewed the plans for security. This part of it, there were some cameras, there was some technology involved, but the majority of the program was going to be the vestibules. There were new cameras, and another thing I was adamant about was any camera we have should have a recording capability. So those things, and the swipe access were also included. This bigger part, I'm pointing my hat at, the bigger part over there, it was not vetted through there yet. I mean, it could do
Okay,
that.
that'd be great.
I have a meeting on the 4th, and I'd love to bring that.
Yeah, just, and once again, not in an argumentative way, just to try to make sure that we're doing due diligence around it. And just so I'm correct too, the 97 cameras and contact system and wiring and recording for that is close to 800,000? Or is it less?
I'm sorry, I don't have the.
Say it again, Mike?
The 97 cameras is like 80%, say 80% of the cost of the security project.
It's more, it's 97 plus 53 plus 80.
So I'll just
Yeah.
I have an example question that, and I think this is, I'm thinking is something along the same lines as Mike. As you were giving your talk, Brian, so it makes sense to me, right? And I'm just a layperson, right? So I have no security background, there's whatever intuition I have. But it's better that, you know, if a door is open, someone can go in and out. That's a security breach, right? Let's say. And that costs $600 to put that contact in there, right? With the contact monitoring, right? But then to put a camera in there, that's 5 times that. It adds 5 times. So now you're driving the cost from $600 to $4,000, right? By adding that camera. Why would we do that? And I'm not suggesting we don't. Well, who knows? Who can tell me or someone why that is a good idea or it's a bad idea not to do it, right? So we can make 2 mistakes. We can spend money that we shouldn't, or we could not spend money that we should have. So who gives us that level of saying, no, you guys got cameras, there was a sense, right? That's what
I'm going to try.
Are you that guy?
Well, I'm going to answer that as humble as I can. Okay, because I deal with so many school districts, and I've been doing this for 10 years, and I was in other technology positions before that. I see what all the schools are doing, they're reacting, what they want to do, what they can do, what they can't do. Okay, a lot of schools are going out and getting security consultants to come in, FBI type, ex-FBI type, and so forth. And that's a great idea, right? These people know. They know. They'll check lighting. Is there any area in the building that doesn't have the right lighting? So they get very in depth. All right. I'm not that person. Okay. What I am is the person that knows pretty much the type of investments that are going on and where administrations are saying, I need to be able to have a camera there. Now, I also know that I go into a lot of schools where the first security walkthroughs, they'll be putting 400 cameras up, so they think, It's just not realistic. I mean, you can put, to do a stairwell, three cameras in a stairwell. Now, if you're having a lot of fights and bullying going on in a stairwell, you may want to make that investment. So it really comes down to the Verona School District. Where are your issues? What do you want to protect yourself? And, how do I do this?
Okay, but so once someone decides that, you're the guy who can design the technology.
I can ask the questions to you to say, okay, what are the hot spots in your building? What do you want to see when an event happens? I mean, what do you want to see on the camera? I mean, is it your students? Do you have the issues with the students?
Right.
Are you afraid of the protection?
But you're not the consultant.
I don't consider myself a security consultant.
Okay. But you're the technology.
Yes.
Guy. Right.
But it sounds like what we could do is have 2 board members, either one of the committees or 2 ad hoc board members. You have a meeting on January 4th.
December 4th,
December 4th, sorry.
next week.
With our ad hoc, call it, security committee, Chief Huber, et cetera.
Right.
We could have either a subcommittee of the board or and 2 board members that want to volunteer to sit in on that. And just to go through and say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, what are we getting? And what in here might you not need is a question about the number of cameras versus what we're trying to achieve. But it sounds like we have some combination of surveillance, see what's going on, and shortly thereafter what happened. We have visitor management, which is really included where we are today. We have swipe access so that we don't have the proverbial put a rock by the door so I can get back in. Well, that's the next one. Swipe access allows that a teacher doesn't have to do that. Like the gym teacher at HP, I'm pretty sure right now is not locking herself out of the school. There's a rock that helps that person get back to the building.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a combination of, right, because why would they put the rock in the building?
Just to open the door. The Board of Ed does it when we have to get in on the other side. We use block of wood instead of rock. And then there's contact. The contact monitoring piece is a big change from the last time, because now an alert can come out that something happened. We'll have a look and see who came in and who went out. And then the vestibule's bit is part of the procedure and all that got wrapped into the building design changes where it needed to be. Some buildings needed more of it, some buildings needed less of it as it So if we could get, just give some thought, we'll go through it at the end with some takeaways. If we get 2 board members to do that meeting on the 4th and go through with the committee, I think we get a good sense for next time on where we stand.
And usually what will
What this covers
happen,
and what it doesn't.
and usually what will happen as a result of that is you want to walk the schools to say, okay, what areas of the school? And the more people you have in that walkthrough, the more ideas you're going to have.
Well, why don't we, if I could suggest this, that we have the meeting first, because the meeting's going to involve expertise to go through, and then after that, we can arrange for the whole board to go on a field trip. If we walk through that, we'll probably do- it's not exactly,
Or
probably-
certain representatives, or
Yeah, either that, or we probably want to do walk through some various parts of it, so we can split the meeting somehow. I mean, we get to the rest of the presentation. Okay?
any other questions?
No, we can get into the build, now we're going to do building by building, right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't know about you, but I'm tired. First slide we're going to talk about is the high school. The referendum for 2014 right now has a budget of just under $7.9 million for the high school. Included in that are the following items: building repair. There will be a music room addition, and I'm going to point to the drawing that's behind me also in addition to these slides. There's a music addition off to the, the north side here, this item in green, that will basically double the capacity of the music room. As we know, Verona has a very strong music program with a lot of interested students, and having discussed programming with the director of the music department, we came up with the size and determination of what should be done there. And that room would have some, the ability to subdivide into smaller spaces or open it up to be one large room between the existing and the proposed. So that takes care of that addition there. The next item I'd like to talk about is the replacement and repair of heating and cooling systems in the high school. The high school is the one building where, from the last referendum, not a lot of work was done. At the 2006 referendum, the other 5 schools, they had quite a bit of improvements done. The high school had some, but now is the time to make a lot of repairs and improvements on what is there. To describe it just in a quick, very simple nutshell, I guess, is the systems are antiquated. The piping is old. The unit heaters are old. Radiators are old. Ventilation and exhaust systems are old. They all pretty much have gone to the end of their life and beyond. The areas, so the intent here is that we would replace all those components with new, and those components would now be controlled with a new management system, automated management system that would be similar to what is in the other 5 schools that was done the last go around. Items that were put into the high school during the last referendum would stay, and controls and enhancements to those items that are there would be done, so that everything is integrated into one cohesive managed system. There are things in there that are light fixed, there are plumbing, piping lines that are leaking, insulation needs to be redone, units aren't functioning at all, units are functioning substandard, so we're going to redo that throughout the building. And the drawing that you see here in front of you is the high school. Pretty much all the areas that are going to be redone on this board, completely redone, are those in this orange or tan color. What is excluded are things from the last go around. The cafeteria will stay, this locker room has been done, this auditorium will stay. The Board of Education wing, since the newest edition, will stay. So Some other key rooms just behind that will stay. Then there's an area that's shown in a light blue. That is the area where other components had been replaced, the major components, but there will be some enhancements made to those to make the overall cohesive system. Back to this other board here, the other things that we're doing, some of which Brian has already spoken about, would be improvements for cameras. Speaking with the district, we located cameras, which would be these items here with the red circles that look like an eye, approximate location of cameras.
I thought we didn't want pictures.
We just have that, we don't have it, it's off the fair.
He's taking a picture,
Oh,
It's just a him.
not of that. I thought that was the reason why we didn't want it on camera.
Yeah, so Josh, what he's talking about is just crop out the diagram on the inside of the building, that's right.
No problem.
Other things that Brian talked about were the access points, these yellowish Ps for proximity meters or swipe cards are shown throughout the building for key entrances, as was discussed. Other things that will be done, there will be some ceiling replacements. Ceilings will be replaced pretty much throughout the building because they're at that point where they're required, except these areas that have the light gray shading. I'm sorry, those are the areas that aren't getting the ceilings. I have that backwards. Other things that this building will have are sidewalk and paving replacement, the front driveway loop. There's tripping hazards of the curb there, and the pavement has to be redone. The pavement in the back by the service drive also needs to be redone. There's some other key sidewalks here and there that are going to be replaced. There will be masonry repairs around the building. These items in blue is currently where there are things that are cracks, missing bricks, deteriorated concrete, things of that nature. They have to be replaced. We will be putting in kitchen upgrades. These shaded, this diagonal green shaded area is areas of renovation. There are two located in this building, one at the kitchen, one at the front office area, and I'll explain them both. The kitchen requires new equipment for a good part of the appliances and the items that are in there. Wherever we can salvage, we will. Bleachers will be repaired in the two gymnasiums. The infrastructure of those bleachers, the steel undercarriage, if you will, is in very good condition. And discussing with people that do that work, they felt it was better to use what's there as the undercarriage and repair what's above. Because you can't get that undercarriage built today anymore, the way it was done years ago. So the feeling was, let's save what we have because it's in great condition. We'll now motorize it and things of that nature. The doors are going to be replaced in the areas where you see these purple stars. Some doors have already been replaced, so they're not indicated there. They are deteriorated, they're rusting, they don't close properly, they're energy sieves. Cameras I already mentioned, proximity meters, etc. Vestibules is another thing that are going to be done at the different buildings, all 6 buildings. The small green square at the bottom, the main entrance here, will be a new controlled vestibule. People will come up to that door, they'll be buzzed in, they'll be controlled, and with the enhancements that Brian Bird talked about with the visitor management system, people get in, they can't go any further until they're explained who they are, that they're verified, and then they would be able to go further from that point on. The other thing that we're planning on doing is making the perimeter of the building safer with a film that gets applied to the glazing to make them less penetrable, to prevent people from getting in. It's a delay tactic to prevent intruders from getting through. They just can't break the glass to get in. They would seriously have to beat away at it over and over again to get through there. By that time, someone's aware of what's going on and evasive action can be taken.
The classroom windows?
around the entire building, up to about a 5-foot height above grade.
Is that gonna apply to all 6 buildings?
Yes.
So we should include that as part of the security list. And that's a security, that's not a
Well,
maintenance and glazing.
well, if we're not replacing, we're actually adding to the glass. So it is a building improvement, if you will. It
The
is a
reason why I'm doing it
is a security enhancement, yes.
Yeah, we should delineate that, it's a security.
We're confident that all windows that it's being put on don't need to be replaced anytime soon.
What kind of replaced them in what, maybe?
I think the
Let's say
windows,
that we're not gonna put on a broken window, that we're clear with, you know, that window in the past, the teacher said it can never open, like, that happens in all districts, right? Those have been addressed, those are fine.
well, we'd have to evaluate that when it comes time to do those construction documents, yes. We wouldn't put it on something that doesn't work. Right. And another item that was discussed would be a backup generator for this building here to serve the essential needs for this building. So I'm going to just bypass for one moment the multi-purpose field for a second and just see what else I have here. The next slide you see shows some of the deterioration that happened from leaks from the piping that broke. That's in the boys' room where the water is running through. The ceilings are pretty much from the 1960s. They look like they're original. They're falling down. On the next slide, slide number 9, you'll see some of the mechanical items that are in trouble. The first one shows pumps that are leaking, valves that we're not holding, the water levels, rebuilding, etc. It's just costing too much to maintain. Boilers are over 30 years old, and usually the life of these boilers is up to 25 years, so you've already exceeded that. Rooftop unit needs to be replaced. It's tired. It has seen its life, and the air handlers are original to the building also, so they're going to be replaced. The next slide shows the music room as it currently is. And that's the main space, so that space you see there will pretty much be doubled. And to the right of that, there's a picture of the sidewalks and asphalt that are the tripping hazards at the front of the main entrance driveway. The following slide shows some pictures of some of the kitchen components. For instance, those wood butcher block tabletops would be coming out because they're really not that sanitary. Things like that black old pizza oven, they're antiquated, they cost more, some of them don't work, they cost more money to repair than they're worth, they're a constant maintenance problem. So some items we're replacing completely, other items we've considered to what can be salvaged and repaired, serviced, and corrected. And some items, a few will just remain if they're stainless steel tables. There's no need to throw those kinds of items away. And those photographs you see are from both schools. The top 3 are from the high school. The bottom one, I believe, is from Whitehorn, where that stove that you see there barely even works. I'm going to step aside for a moment. I'm going to let...
Just before you go,
Yeah.
on the costs, right? So there's a page in the book here for the kitchen renovation detail, VHS, and then you get to HPW in a bit.
Right.
And then there's a spreadsheet in one of the tabs here with the costs. So at the high school alone, just 3 questions. The ceiling and lighting replacement, the detail on that is one line of $1,374,000, so $1,400,000. How much, I would imagine that's a lot of ceilings that we're going to fix up here at the high school. Is that?
Let me just try to find that. That's in the orange section, correct?
Yeah, it's the first page of the conversation. So it's the 4th line down. See, it's a ceiling and lighting replacement, $1,374,000, but
Right.
it doesn't. Is that? Can we get a sense? Can we get a sense of how many rooms that? Like what is that going to actually buy us? Right?
Well,
I know it says ceilings and lighting, but the lighting is going to be probably the lesser part of that number. I would imagine how the ceiling replacement is the bulk of that number.
But a lot of the lighting is going to be done through your ESIP program, so some of that comes down, that $433,000 is through ESIP.
Oh, so it's the net of those two numbers, so it's $1,374,000 originally minus the 433
So
is
it's
what
in the 900s, that's correct.
Right.
So the lighting throughout the building is going to be redone. Ceilings, as I mentioned, will be redone.
Is that, my question is how many, just to do, to Mike's point before, it's $1 million for technology. This is nearly $1 million for ceilings and lights, so just how,
Right.
is there a way we can get how much?
Paul's, you
27 spaces.
About 27.
27 rooms.
They suspended ceiling.
Also, it's shaded, shaded
On your document here, I see it things as new suspended ceiling.
Right. It's 27 spaces that has it. I understand there's also some hazardous material that's coming out that has to be taken away.
So that cost is it fair to say that anywhere where we see in the diagram, new suspended ceiling, that's part of,
Right.
that's that 900, right, plus whatever above that for lighting.
The lighting, right, when the ceilings come out, the lighting has to come out, has to go back. And
So that's lighting with the ceiling,
And
so
the
the
wiring.
ceilings are gonna get done, that's what the lighting is.
Correct.
The lighting was deleted from the scope. Right, we originally.
Right,
had
because the lighting is gonna be done by the,
The easy program.
right.
That's correct. So that's-
But when I'm all said and done, when I'm financing through the bond and through the program, it's gonna remedy all those spaces that are shaded with those that white shade.
Correct.
Okay. The backup generator, that, we need that at the high school for the, because that's where the servers are and all that? Is that the
I believe
phone
a
system?
good part of it's going to serve your computer systems, the essential heating systems of the building. Your telephone network comes through here. Everything kind of feeds through, this is your hub,
Right.
so you can't be down here.
Right, does that generator allow us to run the building for classes, or just to run the infrastructure?
No.
Just
It's a partial.
So
Like
it's not,
emergency lighting, right?
Emergency lighting is probably, correct me if I'm
Kitchen
wrong,
equipment.
heating.
Do freezers and things like that. We've included putting some distribution through the building, some panels so we can power up specific areas. But it's not going to cover the entire building by any stretch.
right, so the intention of the generator is not so that we can conduct classes, so that we don't lose all our food, we don't lose our data, we don't lose our telephone and communications district-wide.
That's all it's going to cover.
Right.
That's exactly what it's going to
And then, a similar question on the mechanical upgrade. So it's like halfway down that same page. The mechanical upgrade has a line just under $4.5 million. And then there's some deletions in there, right, that are taken out, takes out 645, so the net of that's what, 3.8, right, 3.85? So $3,850,000.
Right.
Is there a way we can get, how does that break down?
Okay.
That's
Well, basically, this is in essence a complete renovation of the entire mechanical system, starting with the boilers, replacing the boilers, which are original equipment. The distribution system is experiencing a lot of leaks.
that's
The leaks, that's the pipes. And those leaks seem to be the result of dissimilar metals that were installed in the system over a period of time. What it's done is it's eaten up the system and basically corroded the joints, and that's where you're starting to have leaks. But you're gonna have more and more leaks, it's gonna accelerate very quickly now, that it's begun. So we're replacing the distribution system, some of it will be abandoned in place, some of it will be in the existing pipe runs, some of the overhead piping may be abandoned in place, but we'll probably use the existing openings through the walls, because that's a cost-effective way to build it. And also the terminal units, most of the terminal units are older equipment, so we're replacing the unit ventilators and things of that nature. There are specific areas on the key plan that were shown that have been renovated over the years. Some of the equipment has been renovated, has been replaced. Some of the systems are new in some of the additions that you have. And so those areas we're not touching. All we're doing is networking the controls, because the new mechanical system will include an entirely new control system. So you'll be able to operate and manage the building very effectively, including the existing equipment that we use.
So there's nothing in there that we would talk about optionality. This is the full boat to get the thing back to where it's supposed to be.
That's correct. And given the
I'm restoring the building to its original 1957 luster.
Actually, it'd be better than that, because you'll have better control and you'll have better management of it, and it'll be more efficient equipment, so it'll operate much better.
Yep, okay, got it. Okay, great, thanks.
Are there any other questions that were discussed so far? No? Then I'm going to let Robert Walsh from EI come up here and discuss the multi-purpose field.
Actually, I have a question, see if I can
Sure.
I have from you guys. Usually, Josh, I always ask us this question at the end of like interview session, he's like, is there anything else you'd like to include? And I always think, gosh, I should prepare for that question, but, is there anything else in your expertise that, you're looking at this and you say, you know what, this would be a great addition, but it didn't come up, or whatever reason didn't come to fruition? Is there anything that you'd say?
No, having spoken with members of the district, and we talked about programs and size, and very concerned with budgets, I think we're going to make substantial improvements to this building from the comfort and economies of energy usage, and from your heating and your lighting, et cetera. The music room was the one area of addition that seemed to be a really necessary improvement because of your strong music program. I think it's a worthwhile thing that's being done. The other small addition we have in the front, as I discussed, was that vestibule. No, I think the security enhancements and the items discussed that are integrated with ProMedia's work will give you what you're needing at this point. Thank you. I'll be back.
Good evening. The multi-purpose field is a combination of site remediation for structural reasons due to the formation of sinkholes. As you know, the field's currently closed to use, and what we're proposing to do as you can see, upper left photograph is a well shaft that was discovered back in 2012 during the site investigation. You can see in the upper right-hand corner the photograph of various building materials that were pulled out of the excavations, and on the slope on the eastern side of the fields and the woods, you can see in the lower left-hand photograph is material that's clearly visible at grade and representative of the type of fill that was installed back when the field was created. And then finally in the lower right-hand corner, we have a sinkhole that formed, and I believe that was as a result of the large and varying size material that's placed in the fill. So over time, water migration, groundwater migration through there has caused some subsurface erosion. So to stabilize this condition, what we're proposing to do is a dynamic compaction that will be take place in the field area where the historic fill is. And on this exhibit, the C1 drawing, we've indicated a dashed purple line which represents the area of the historic fill that would receive the dynamic compaction. The extent to how much that occurs on the north side of Sampson Drive is still yet to be determined, but we've included in the cost to do, at least install a soil cap. So what will happen is the bulk area of the field will have the trees removed on the slope on the east side of the football field, be completely removed because they are within the area to be remediated. We will dynamically compact that part of the field to remove and minimize the future settlement. And then the athletic field, the synthetic turf, and the underdrain system will function as a cap that would protect the users of the field from any impact associated with the historic fill. The rest of the area would receive a soil cap. Since we're basically removing the trees and making the slope unstable, we're proposing to finish that from a grading standpoint with segmental block retaining walls. There'll be 3 tiers of varying height, and we're able to get an access drive from the lower baseball field up to the new multi-purpose field. As part of the other improvements associated with the field, we're replacing the home side bleachers, installing stadium lighting, walkways that are ADA accessible, home side bleachers, visitor side bleachers that will be at grade, constructed on concrete pads, a new scoreboard, and striping for at least 4 events, or 4 sports. On the north side of Sampson Drive, We're basically installing the soil cap. And Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, we currently have in the estimate the tree removal and all the work that's necessary to do that. Further investigation will be money well spent to determine whether the true extent of the area to be remediated extends all the way up to Fairview Ave. If we can determine that this is essentially clean fill and it's not really made up of material that's owned by the athletic field, we could probably remove that area from the remediation area. We're pretty certain that just based on what we see at grade, that the area east of the parking lot and a little bit north of the parking lot and east of the existing tennis courts would need some type of dynamic compaction and soil cap installed.
Okay. So the parking lot and the tennis court area has to be all redone because of the compaction.
That's been pulled down to the,
The parking lot doesn't exhibit any problems at the moment, and it's not, it is itself decapped by state standards, and so the concept is to not work what's not fixing, not fix what's not working. And so the tennis courts and the parking lot remain as is.
So
What about Sampson Drive, because that's included in there as well?
that functions as a, any place that's existing impervious that shows no signs of structural instability will be considered a functioning cap that's
Okay.
acceptable.
And in any event, Sampson Drive is a public road, I believe, so it's not in your jurisdiction.
The purple dashed line though, that surrounds all the area in the diagram, that surrounds all the area that would have to be compacted. That includes right now that parking lot
And the tennis courts.
tennis courts.
Right.
Yes, it does.
However, it does. However, the area north of Sampson Drive has not been sanctioned. And so another step will need to be taken as part of this program to confirm the extent of the remediation that's necessary. And hopefully we can reduce the cost by eliminating at least some areas along Fairfield Avenue.
But I think it's saying it's paved, I mean, you're not going to do production.
No, not in the paper.
So I mean, the rest is just lawn.
Well, there's trees there, and so there's kind of a large cost associated because you've got to take down all the trees, and then you've got to dynamically compact it, fill in all the holes, take the stumps out, and then put a new imported soil cap on it. So, you know, there's a couple layers of construction work involved with that. If we can determine that that is okay by further testing, that may be part of the reason why the testing wasn't done there. They were trying to establish the extent really where they saw it was obviously present around the parking lot. This is a wooded area, it's tough to get equipment in there, and I'm assuming that is why they didn't go that far forward. But for, in reviewing the topography, it appears to be a fill area north and west of the Tennyson parking lot. So they included that in the area, but as Richard said, no definitive testing has been done there.
So when FPA did their analysis, they didn't do the analysis of those
I
areas?
think FPA was engaged initially to cover fields. And so during their investigation, it appeared to them, based on some historical record, that the area north of Sampson Drive was part of that fill operation. And so they included it in their report. However, they never verified, it was not their scope to verify what was happening on the other side of Sampson Drive.
John, just to clarify, FDA did do some test pits on that side of Sampson Drive. They did come back with positive results in that area to the eastern half of the parking area and to the northern half of the parking area. They did not go as far as the west side of the tennis courts. Basically, when they got to a certain point on the opposite side where contamination led them to where they had to presume that it came across the street as well. They did test pits on the opposite side, verified that there was a certain level of contamination there. But then that was the end of our agreement and contract to what's the next step.
Paul, would you mind going to the microphone
Sure.
because it's not going to pick up on the tape?
All right, so what you're saying is FPA tested the area for this part is behind the tennis courts, right?
Yeah.
At the bottom.
They tested-
But not the part up by Fairview.
Exactly, exactly.
So but is there a reason why we need to address, like, we don't use that land, is there any reason for it? Is it all-
It's part of the remediation, the environmental aspect of remediation. It's not necessarily a structural issue as we have with the field.
Once you have that historic fill on your property, you have to define the entire span of it, and then you have to address it.
So
You can't partial remediate, you gotta do everything. So, this is a very good, that eastern boundary on the north side of Sampson is a very good established plan. In fact, they did test holes east of that and found that there was nothing there. That's why they were able to establish that very well. And if you see the other line, they went outside the property, basically signifying that it hasn't been determined, the limits.
Okay.
John, I have a question. I apologize, I'm late to the game, so you may have already addressed this. But why are we doing the remediation? Is it in order to be able to achieve having a football field there?
To make use of the field, yeah. I believe that's it. French Perillo did an investigation, presented several alternatives, one of which was a complete removal of the material at a very expensive cost, a dynamic compaction, and then a do-nothing scenario, which is basically cordon off the area and don't let anybody access it. And I believe in the report they said that it's not conclusive whether DEP would even accept that, because you still have other parts of your property that are going to be subject to people using it, that mainly being the north side of Sampson. So that was the alternative that was pursued. So this, I believe, was the least costly. Yeah.
So what's a football, if we didn't have to remediate a football field, $1 million?
I would say, it depends what you include in terms of bleachers and so forth. I would say for this type of facility, having done dozens and dozens of them, you're talking about, if you had no remediation involved in this project, it's like 1.75.
We, so one thing on the numbers here, so this, it adds up to a big chunk of the, what the total project is going to be. It's a fair amount of work, and no discount for that. But when French and Perillo came in the spring, granted, it was a very preliminary estimate, but their estimate was just about $2 million. And it ends up, there's a page in here with the breakdown of the costs. It's broken down in general condition, site improvement, athletic facility, demolition, hazardous material, and then there's a buffer cost that's at the bottom. And the thing comes out to about, net of the deletions, about $5.5 million of the total bond. Is there a way we can reconcile that number with what French Perillo said when we started this?
Paul, you might be able to answer some of that. Do you know that off the top of your head, or is that something?
Well, I can't speak to
cost
estimate, I'm not the cost estimate.
Yeah, I know that their costs did not include the sidewalks, new bleachers was not included, lighting was not included. I don't think there were any scoreboards or athletic equipment like
If we could just list them side by side, because
yeah, we can generate that list, because we do have the one that was presented in the original report, preliminary, or whether.
I think that would be helpful, because you go from about $2 million to do it, and then now it's 5.5 or so. I think say, well, how did you go? That's $3 million or something.
I'll say this, John, FPA's cost estimate was related strictly to the aspect of remediation. So to correct the issues, correct the structural issues, correct the environmental issues, and then put a synthetic turf field there, which would act as an environmental cap. So it did, like Rob mentioned, it didn't include all these other ancillary structures, the sidewalks, the bleachers, all the work across Sampson Drive, which was not even in consideration at the time.
The parking lot side.
Correct.
Or any of the soft cost side. So really,
Which is a
substantial.
percentage, yeah. But even if I take all the soft costs out, it's still a couple of million difference, right? So if we could just lay out, just so we have visibility, say, all right, here's what I got from, I thought I was doing a $2 million project, and now I'm doing a $5.5 million project, that's all.
And I think one of the items is the sheer size. At some point preliminarily, they weren't across the street. They were just.
Yeah, that's the point, concentrating on the field and not the other part. Like I said, it's just, fair enough, it's just, be good to just get a sense of where that delta is, right?
If we weren't putting a $1.7 million football field there, and just walked away from the problem, but we still have to do something, what do we have to do, and how much would that cost?
Well, I think that you probably have two issues here. One is you have sinkholes being created. So unless you dynamically compact or remove the fill, you're going to have a recurring problem with having an unsafe field or whatever you do with it.
No field.
Okay, so now then the other issue is to install a cap so that you can use the field for any purpose that you want. You would have to bring in the fill that we talked about of some nature, which is what we're proposing to do here basically, or outside the main field itself. But, if you look at it, if you're going to make any use at all of the facility,
Yeah, so
space.
my question is, I recognize this hypothetical, but what if we made no use of it? Because the way I'm looking at it from a financial perspective, what if we just, 40 years ago, we destroyed that land? Now to get it back, to make use of it, we have to now spend arguably $4 million, right? At least to put a football field in. But if we didn't, if we just said, you know what, we destroyed it, right? And we just fence it off or whatever, and put some solar panels on it or something like that. It was just absolutely destroyed. What was that?
I don't have a number for that, but I'm guessing, and again, we're not environmental experts, we'd have to see that it would be acceptable to the Department of Environmental Protection, but at the very least, a cap would have to be installed.
Okay, like dirt, like asphalt?
No, it could be dirt, 2.5 feet of soil.
2.5, okay.
Yeah.
Steve, to comment on your point, if I remember correctly, when French Pillow were here, even if it's existing, but the other cement is existing, so you don't need to dig it up to fix it. But if it's not existing, we do need to address it. And I could be wrong, but I thought that the number was 600,000 per field before.
That was
the
the
I'm saying because they gave us a cost of turfing the field plus remediation that was a little north of 2 million. So in that was the cost of turfing.
Right,
So it could be 1.7 million to build the field, and only 100,000, couple hundred thousand to remediate it, right? So it would have to
The
bid.
address is the same question we said before, can we get some records, some side by side, what one side is thinking and what the other firm is then? How does that cost me?
And coming late in the game, but we had talked about putting solar panels or something, but even with that, we have to spend the 2-3 million just to remediate it, to put solar panels.
Yeah, so I guess really my question is, what if we just walked away from that, condemned that piece of property? Because in effect, 40 years ago, that's what we did, right? And we saved, I don't even know if you were to look on a square foot basis to recover that piece of property, is that worth $4 million?
I seem to recall French Pillow saying that we had to do it, that there was no guarantee that the DEP was going to let us walk away from it. The fact that it's
I'm not
a
environmental.
continuous project that goes from the south side of Sampson to the north side of Sampson, DEP says that's all your property. And so you're going to fix that little patch over there, you have to do that over there too. Whether or not you put a field on it, whether you put grass on it, or you grow corn on it, you still had to do it. And that was a substantial cost. So that was a majority of the cost that they had laid out, was the fact that you have to do this even if you walk away from it.
Right.
It's not something that you can just say, pretend doesn't exist. The other problem is that it's still creating a drainage problem even on the lower field, is it not? I mean, don't we have some, you've got the deterioration of the side, one side of the east side of the football field, you've got, and so even to walk away from it, you still may have a problem in terms of drainage, in terms of anything else you want to do. So walking away from it doesn't seem to be a logical choice, and one that we may not even have a choice whether we can do or not. Because DEP says, wait a second, this is all your property, and you got to fix it all.
Yeah, no, Joe, I would acknowledge that for sure, but if I just look at just the dimensions right, that's maybe a quarter of an acre worth of land, right, half an acre?
What is it for?
Well, you know, the.
That piece of property, on the, I recognize on the surface, I know the problem's subsurface, but that, maybe half an acre we're talking about remediating, right?
No, it's more like 5 acres?
Yeah, it's much more than half acre.
5 acres up there.
Well, a track, a regular running track, I think is like 3 acres, a little less than 3 acres inside that. This extends.
No, I'm just
I don't-
talking
I don't- yeah.
about the problem part, just the part
The
that
problem part is the purple dashed line that goes, extends around the parking lot, in the lawn areas, in the areas that are outside of
Okay,
what's an acceptable catch. So it's a substantial area.
okay, so
I mean,
if it's 5 acres, so let's say it's, just to do the math easy, if it's 4 acres, we're gonna put
Well-
$4 million in order to recover 4 acre piece of property and make it usable.
As an athletic field.
Right, maybe make it usable as something, right, whether it's, so I guess my question is that worth it, right? Is it $4 million to recover 4 acres? Does that make sense, or do we just condemn it? And, I mean, it's an unfortunate thing, but it's a lot of money, right? And what we get out of it is a football field. It'll be the most expensive football field in New Jersey, right?
Well, we did the same, we had to remediate York and remediate Hillside.
I doubt Arlington is going to be the most expensive. I mean, you've had some, what are the major,
Yeah, the Newark School Stadium, for example, that's $20 million.
That was a cap project.
And that was a cap project as well. And actually,
Hillside,
when you think about it, the kind of remediation we
Okay,
did
so we're
there
in third place.
was a lot simpler than this because you have a structural problem, whereas even at the stadium, we didn't have a structural problem.
You bring perspective that we have models before that. It's unique.
I mean, you're talking about walking away from something that we're told that we can't walk away from. We've got to do something with it.
You know, in order to use it, but the,
Not just to use it, no, not even just to use it,
In order to
just to
condemn it.
look at it,
In order to condemn it, there was a,
just to look at it.
it was a, I don't want to say $600,000. I have to go back to this thing. I think it was about $600K was the estimate to condemn it.
okay.
But we didn't, but
It's still per acre, and that
we've
could
been
be
told
pretty
that
expensive.
the DEP may not accept that.
But that was, but there was a cost to walk away.
That was a cost if we don't even know that they would accept it. And-
Okay, all right, that's fair. So, because if the number to walk away from it is 3 million, and to fix it is 4 million, then it makes sense, right? But if the number is 600,000, and in order to recover it, it's 4 million, then maybe there's an analysis there.
I think there's something to think about, that at the end of the day, the consensus of the board was that you'd want to have 2 fields here at the high school. And if you condemned it or didn't fix it, you'd be reduced to one space, right, the lower
lose a
space.
field, right.
You'd lose one of the spaces. So this would not only fix it, but it would fix it so that you get lots of use out of it. Much more so, obviously, than what we were getting up here before we closed it.
Yeah, well, okay, I mean, like, I apologize for, I feel like I came to the party and I'm asking why you're drinking that kind of beer, but with all that money, and based on the square footage that through the state's turfing, I think we could do that lower field and get a lot more bang for our athletic field buck.
I think the estimate on the lower field was $6 million, so he doesn't want to spend $4 million, he'd rather spend $6 million. So I don't see the logic in that.
Is there an estimate for, the
We never got,
I
never got it.
I saw up to $4 million in here for the lower field. I don't know if there was an error or not, but.
That was like it wasn't an estimate from a firm. It was an
It was
estimate.
not or was?
It was not an estimate from a firm. It was an estimate by using calculations of the field and coming up with a rough estimate on our own in-house.
No, when Joe's on committee, when Joe says there's an estimate for the lower field, do we have an estimate for the lower field?
It's in your 5-year plan. Mr. McDevitt put that in there, but it's a rough estimate.
That's my estimate.
That's Paul's estimate.
You get a lot more. I mean, it's not the, I would definitely do $6 million down there if we could pass a referendum. You get 2 football fields down there, plus baseball field, you showed me the drawing, softball field, probably, there's gotta be room for 2 football fields down there.
I do have a drawing from a company that did just, I said, let me check this out, and gave it to me, there was room for 2 full fields.
Well, there is room for 2 football fields.
That's what the drawing says.
So we wouldn't lose.
I'm questioning that. I'd like to see the drawing, frankly. I'm questioning whether you get 2 football fields.
If Steve
And why would you want-
convinced you, would you look at it, Joe?
I'd like to see it, and no, I wouldn't be convinced, because I don't think that you can do it, and I don't think that it's even practical. To have 2 football fields. Why would you even want to? And have stands as well.
All right, I just throw the idea, I apologize.
Any other questions on the field?
No?
So you built the newer stadium too?
Yeah, the school stadium, yeah, that's all.
It's a beautiful stadium.
Okay. So, as has been demonstrated so far, the high school is getting quite a bit of the work here because it's at a point where it needs it. It has its problems because it's been going the longest, and now the time has come. The remaining 5 schools.
I'm sorry, I have a question about the high school. Now that you brought it up, I'm sorry to cut you off. I see your eyes there and you're like,
That's all of us.
that's great, but I'm asking about. I remember a few years ago, we were talking about improvements in the high school. One of the things that came up with were the floor tiles. We weren't going to address it though because there's asbestos under it and the cost for remediation of hazardous material would be dramatic. But I didn't actually see any of that in here. I'm wondering why we talked about it 2-3 years ago, but we're not talking about it now in high school.
Well, I think that's on the deferred list of things.
Yeah. You're speaking about the floors right now?
Yeah. So why that made it to the deferred list, either in the high school or around the district?
You know, basically, Michael, when we created this 5-year plan 3 years ago, in essence, you know, the task was to identify the highest priority needs. And to my mind, when you walk through the corridor floors, they're not unsafe, there's no adverse health conditions, so why would you put that top priority? That's basically how I view it.
Great, thanks.
So as I was saying, the remaining 5 schools don't have as much being done to them since they were worked on several years ago. The bulk of the work that you will see in the drawings that I'm going to present is really around the perimeter of the building with some internal things. And I'm going to start here with Whitehorn. The drawing here, Whitehorn School, the referendum for next year, the anticipated budget for that is just under $882,000. And what this building will have, building grounds will have done are some sidewalk repairs at around the building, the parking lot, some parking lot in the rear of the building needs to be redone. And the next slide does show some photographs of some deterioration, and the 2 right photographs of some of the sidewalks and other paved surfaces. The other work that's being done in this building are some masonry repairs. Again, in the blue elements that you see around the perimeter of the building, that's where there are cracks, there are structural steel lintels over windows that are starting to fail. There are just areas that need to be repointed or whatever. That's the masonry areas that have to be redone. There are 2 areas where we're doing renovation inside the building, and I call it renovation. One again is a kitchen in Whitehorn. In the upper left-hand corner of the plan, you'll see a green shaded, or diagonal shaded area. That represents the kitchen area in Whitehorn, where we're going to again replace equipment that has to be repair that can be salvaged, and some components will remain. The other shaded, green shaded area is in the front entry of the building. That will be some modification to that vestibule there to create that secure area vestibule when you come in, so that people come into the building and they can't go any further until they're allowed to do so. The red circles with the little eye, again, on cameras, the keys and the proximity with card access swipe locations that were discussed with the district. Pink stars are the doors that are being replaced. Not as many on this building because quite a few of them have been redone, and the additions that were done a few years ago obviously don't need them. Again, to reiterate what I said earlier, there will be window film put around on the glass. Contacts will be put on the doors. If there's the cameras inside and out, in the center of the plan, you'll see that there's just one dot that describes that there's going to be another 20 interior cameras spread throughout the building. I just didn't get into the whole plan on that. It's in the corridors and key spaces and things of that nature. You'll have the technology improvements as ProMedia has described and things of that nature. And the next slide, which part of you've already seen, shows some of the doors, the exterior doors that are being replaced that have rust. The original wood frames, they are at a point they need to be redone. FM Brown School. Budget for that is just about $424,000. Again, this is perimeter items here. The parking lot in Brown, in the back of the building and the sides of the building are going to be redone. They're in sad shape. It's pretty much all the asphalt that's on that property. There will be, again, the green area in the front of the building has the controlled vestibule point. Now, in doing that, we're going to make some reconfiguration of the main office space with the principal's office and things of that nature to make it function properly so when people come in, that they have direct contact with the office, not so much with the principal. So that's why it encompasses a little bit more than just the vestibule, but it's not a very extensive amount of work. The red circles for the cameras, the P's for the proximity mirrors, the pink stars for the doors being replaced. This building, when we walked around, it was felt that masonry repairs were not required. So, technology upgrades again. It was ProMedia's work, and the security film around the outside glass again will be included. Forest Avenue School, budget of almost $435,000. This project will also include the paving in the front and the back of the building, which is in very poor shape. I'm just going to skip to the next photograph slide here. Yes, I'm going the wrong way. There. You'll see in those photographs there, the asphalt is in pretty bad shape. There are large holes everywhere. What they refer to as the alligatoring of the surface because it's falling apart. There are some sidewalks and stairs that need replacement and concrete work and masonry walls, small retaining walls that have to be corrected. So that's part of the work being done on this property. The building itself, again, the blue representing areas of masonry repair, the same thing as before with lintels and pointing cracks, things of that nature. The green area here is a little bit more extensive to gain that controlled vestibule entrance. Right now, when you come into this school and you come into that vestibule, the main office, you make a right turn, go down the hall, make another turn. So it's a little circuitous to get to the office, and it's really not good to have the office so remote from the main entrance. So It was discussed that the main entrance, the main offices would be replaced near the main entrances. So that's why you see those two areas of green renovation. Where the one in the rear is current offices, which will be relocated to the front, and that area in the rear will be converted back into a classroom. Cameras, proximity readers, doors, window film, the same items again. Technology upgrades. And that takes care of that school. Brookdale has a budget of just under $219,000. This building will have masonry repairs, again shown in blue. This building probably has some of the more severe masonry repairs than any of the other buildings. There are sections of brick veneer that are separating from the main facade, and with gaps as wide as an inch or even an inch and a quarter or so from the main part of the building. You need to stabilize that and or replace it so it doesn't fall down. I don't want to make it sound like the building's collapsing. It's not. It's the veneer that's on the building, particularly at the piers that are at the front, where the bulk of those brick sections are starting to come away. And we can stabilize it and or repair those areas so that that does not continue and gets corrected. And in the photograph that you see that I put up there now, it's a little hard to see here, but there's the leftmost photograph shows the pier in the center, and it's a little hard to see, but there is a gap or a vertical crack between the left side of that pier and the white frame of the window. That's about an inch wide. That's pretty big. The next photograph shows another pier where a similar crack is shown. And that they've been remortared several times, and it's just not holding because the crack's not going to go away until you get to the root of the problem. And the last photograph shows a vertical crack that's been caulked, but it continues to open up. So that has the most masonry that has to be repaired.
I just have one quick question.
Sure.
My memory may be failing, but I thought that's where the new construction was in that,
I was just going to get to that.
northwest portion building.
Right. I was just going to get to that. The areas where the piers are predominantly in the front of the building where those piers are. And there's periodic spaces around the original building that require those repairs. The area that you see here where the addition is the area at the ground level. I don't want to call it the basement, the ground level as you see from the outside, where there's cement, stucco, or parging along that entire building on those sides that is all falling off.
So the addition was
The part that's visible.
The new stuff's not falling apart.
The finish on the new stuff is falling off. The stucco, if you will. The building, the addition here, these three sides.
Right.
Has like a cement stucco finish. That's the first exposed story out of the ground.
We did that in
It's new.
2005, that's new.
That's new, and above it is brick. The brick above, there's no problem. It's the stucco that's coming off the wall. It's cracking, it's falling, it's brittle.
So the stucco was painted on stucco?
No, it's actually a cement.
The cement, yeah, but I mean,
It's
not,
part of the
it's not the
part.
foundation.
It's not the foundation, no, it's not.
Finished.
I don't believe it's the structure, it's the finish on that that's coming off, but if you don't take care of it, it'll let water get into the building and have internal leaks.
I don't think we designed that, we didn't design that stuff to last for 6 years, I don't think.
The stucco should last a lot longer than 6 years.
So do we know what happened?
Your guess is as good as mine. It could be that it was too cold, could be it was too wet, could be it was too hot, who knows? It may not, the surface may not have been prepared properly before the stucco was applied. Don't really know. It's the surface material, that 3/4 to an inch of material that's brittle and starting to fall off. In the corners especially, you can see it. There's gaps in there, some places I could put my pinky in it, it's that big. So, it's not a a giant cost, but it's a part that has to be redone because
Yeah,
it
no,
just
it
continues.
just stood out to me when I saw the blue.
Right,
That's why I thought we did the new stuff, right?
it looks
So-
worse than it is, but I had to indicate it.
Okay.
Okay, so again, the green shaded area at the front vestibule, will be another secure vestibule. Cameras, in red, proximities, Ps, the purple or pink stars for the doors being replaced. Window film around the entire perimeter, anything from grade 5 feet up. And then this area here within the multi-purpose gym, there'd be the bleachers in there. Although there are only 3 tiers, they also need to be refurbished, similar to what's being done in the high school. And that's what's being done there. Finally, there's Lanning Avenue School, the one building, the one-story building that has a very relatively small budget of just under $37,000. It has, again, some of the worst thing that it has here are doors that need to be replaced by the stars being shown. There aren't that many doors because there are additions done on here. Those doors are fine. We are having the cameras in the red circles, the proximity readers, the yellow Ps. And the green area in the front there will again be a controlled vestibule access point in the front of that building. And the window film will be placed around that building also.
Perfect, Mr. Fence's slide, please. Fence's slide.
Sorry. So there's the budget number, the technology upgrades from Prometheus, the security items I just discussed. Those are some of the doors that are there. They're rusted, they're rotting, they just have met their service life and need to be upgraded with the new doors that are being done throughout the district. And the last slide I'm going to talk about has to do with the estimated project costs. And there's items here shown in 2 different columns, the first one by school. To recap, the high school work that we were described tonight for the buildings and grounds was just under 7.9. The multi-purpose field is shown at about 5.4. Technology and security for all the schools is about 1.25 million. Whitehorn work just under 882. Brown 424. Forest 435. Brookdale under 219, and Landing about 37 for a total project cost of 16.95 million. If you go by project in the rightmost column and you go by the type of work being done, there's asphalt paving, and this you can add up for all the schools. The asphalt paving work, 486,000, bleacher replacements or repairs is just under 223. Ceiling and lighting replacement, 940. Exterior door replacement, 637. The field, again, 54. Oh, fire alarm. I should have mentioned that there were discussions about having the fire alarms replaced in the buildings. And I neglected to say that before. We are replacing components and devices in the buildings at Forest and Brown. So I apologize for leaving those 2 items out. That comes out to just under 71,000. Kitchen upgrades between the 2 schools of 680. Again, that includes appliances, equipment, the finishes in those rooms where Whitehorn really does not even meet code. Masonry repairs between the schools, 491. Mechanical upgrades to the high school, 385. The music room addition at 155. Security, Prometheus estimate of 995. Industrial upgrades that I was describing of 423 about for a 1.4 project. And the sidewalks of just under 296. The backup generator at 889 for a total again of 16.95.
the technology and the security numbers, they don't match the front pages of the presentation, right?
Well, on the, by private side, they don't, because in the security line, that includes the per-meeting estimate plus the vestibule upgrade. So it's shown a little bit different
Oh,
here.
so it's categorized.
It's categorized a little.
We should standardize, let's get that ready for public consumption, I think.
Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so there's a couple of, so I'm gonna, I'll ask for Paul for some guidance on this, and I would imagine that there's probably some questions on this, but in the binder, there's a tab in there with the 5-year summary plan that the board has been working with for the past couple of years. And that plan, to reference the first part of the presentation, encompasses the high priority items that were left out of the 2005 project, plus new items that have been identified since. And that's the plan that we've met with the town about, we've tried to tackle on our own, we've gone to various kinds of funding to get matching and all the rest of it, and at the end of the day, all roads lead to, you're gonna have to do a bond in order to knock any material list, percentage of that list out. And the point of this is that there are other items, to Michael Eunice's point, that we deem non-essential historically. So replacing the tile on the floor is sort of, unless there's a reason to do it, it's a tripping hazard or some other thing, it's sort of, it's floor, you stand on it, it stays in place, and that's probably not a bad thing. So we put that in the aesthetics category, is my understanding. However, on the 5-year plan, about 40% of the line items in that plan, not 40% of the cost, but 40% of the number of items are not included here, and Paul, we're deferring that. The recommendation is to defer that. But what's included in there for transparency, just because I think it's important that you guys all take a look at that and get comfortable on what we're deferring, because we will be back for funding some point in the very near future, probably a couple of years out, 5 years or something, some reasonable amount of time. FN Brown and HPW boilers are going to hit their life expectancy in the next couple of years. They're not included in this, they're on that plan. District-wide roof replacements as needed, renovation of K and first grade bathrooms are on there. There's replacement of interior doors here at VHS. And I put those are in one category by themselves, because that adds up to the lion's share of the money that we're leaving behind or deferring it right now. There's exterior painting and FN Brown and HPW. Landing and Forest starting to do floor replacement, as there are repairs constantly being made in those buildings. Natural field maintenance for the existing other fields, the 5 other fields. There's some money in there for that. And then replacement of various machineries and vehicles, there's some money in there for snow blowers, generators in other buildings, and utility vehicles that are going to need to be replaced in the next couple of years. So that's all in the 5-year plan. And as we go forward, we have to be conscious of what we're saying should be in here and what is not in there, right? I'm sorry, I didn't get last page, I can't see. So, in summary, the intention here is to focus on high priority improvements that were identified back in '05 that we haven't gotten to yet, that were outside the scope of the 2005 project, plus new items that have come up since. We summarize the cost, the scope of the project by repairs to the buildings and to the mechanical systems within the buildings, technology expansion of the network, and backup equipment, security improvements in and around vestibules and control of visitors to the building, the visitor tracking system, as well as cameras and remote detection on doors being opened and closed, and card swipes in certain doors. And the engineering is complete, right? You guys have done, from an engineering point of view, we've finished the engineering, we're into substitute this sort of repair for that sort of repair and get the costs sort of into the right numbers. But in terms of the engineering itself, that's been done, as understanding documentation, there's a timeline to get documentation to the state and beyond, and that's been filed and all. And the cost estimates of all of that are nearly finalized, but the board does have some things to agree on that are in there that we have to finalize. And there's a couple of takeaways that I made some notes, and I'm sure others have some ideas as well. The intention here is to gather all the necessary state and board approval. So we have a couple of hoops to jump through yet with the state to get final approval. We'll get the ROD letter in December. There's a takeaway on that. And the board is going to have to vote at some point on what the project will look like. My suggestion is that we do it in sort of a two-phase vote. We sort of come to agreement on what we would be voting on so we can present it to the public and get public comment, et cetera, as quickly as we can going into January, so that by the time we have to actually strike a formal board vote on what we're asking the state for, we have time to schedule the vote. Right now, we're shooting for the March date. If we miss the March date, the next date would be April, and then if we miss April, the next date would be September, right?
We were told we can't use April.
You can't use April?
No. That was what our attorney said. It's March or September.
Really? The school board told me Thursday night last week we can go to April, but,
Maybe it's for districts that don't use, that still have the April vote. That was what the explanation was.
okay, if that's the case, then we'll work with the attorney.
Where do you get that from?
I got it from our attorney.
I think you should go to Board of Elections and find out. I'm on the same impression with you, that we could use April. I mean,
We'll check to see if.
just double check that.
So a point of clarification, if the referendum is passed in March or April or sometime before September, the earliest that, our understanding is the earliest that any projects will begin will be the fall of 2014, where permissible, given the school to be in session. But the work that's going on inside the buildings and all would happen in the spring and summer of 2015. Right, we would not be doing any work really through this summer and into the coming school year, certainly within the buildings. In terms of takeaway items, I have 6 items here. One is a question on the ROD letter. Do we expect does anybody know do we expect in the ROD letter to know how much grant we expect to receive, or only that we're part of their math?
No, I believe it's how much also. I believe it's how much also.
So we should know.
Because they're still in the process of gathering information from districts and numbers and lists of projects. So I believe that it is going to be the number.
Right, so that timeline was, do we know, we just know December, sometime in the month of December? But
They're saying that by that second week of December, so we may have it for the December 10th meeting.
okay.
Do we have a feel for how much should qualify, everything but the field, for example, or is there?
Level 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah,
Some of the projects are level 2, so those might not qualify. So it's hard to estimate.
The security's level 1, right?
Yeah, security and technology are level 1.
They like that.
They like it, yeah. And like the boilers, things like that, they call it building skin. They consider building skin, and then the other projects could be 2 and 3.
I think the point is that we have a sort of a milestone to get the letter from the state that will give us an indication of how much, not just that we've been approved for certain elements, but we've important to know how much we're talking about, how much money.
Right.
That's the,
But if 12 million of it or so is level 1, 2, and 3, right, and then we could estimate that we should, so really the outcome should be $3 or $4 million.
if they, that's the challenge, that's the reason, see, that's the reason why it's a mystery, because if they fund everything, you're right. The question is, are they gonna give us
Right.
60-cent dollars, right?
Right, that would be the most we would get, like 4 million is
That-
probably the most we would get.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at, is, we'd operate with a sort of a textbook feeling on what we should get versus when we find out the reality of how much they're talking about. I have, and these are not necessarily, this is just the order that I wrote these things down. So I got December 4th is a security follow-up meeting where, I think, Joe, you said you would attend that?
I would, except that the fourth is also the auditor's
What time did you have that meeting?
It's at 5 P.M.
What is
5 P.M. is this meeting with my security.
I just don't make sure that they don't coincide.
Our audit meeting's at 10.
Are you going to that too, Steve?
On the fourth?
December 4th. It would be good if we get 2 board members that
Well,
come over.
Is Steve, Glenn Ailey still on finance or is Steve on finance now?
Glenn is still on finance, Steve is on building,
Right. Oh, you're saying the 5 o'clock meeting.
the security meeting.
Okay.
Not the, yeah, not the,
Okay.
maybe. Right, so if you can't make it, just, if we can get somebody else to go in your place, these two.
Okay.
I can-
All right, so I'll be the primary candidate, and Mike will be my backup if I can't make it.
Yeah,
Good, and you can definitely make it if I can't make it?
yeah,
Okay.
and you won't have a phone call to let him know. He's got-
I will, I'll take care of that, yes. I'll be on that now.
The question I have is this, is that, not knowing what we're gonna get, even if we're gonna get a penny, but let's just make a broad assumption that we get $2 million from the state, which would take this down to 14.9. Would we stay at that level, or would we consider putting some of the things that we deleted out of here back into the project? And I think that we need to give some thought to that. Where do we want to go, given that we're going to get something? If we get nothing, I think we probably, where we're at is where we're at.
I have that as the next thing.
Okay.
So actually, so number one is the December 4th meeting where we got that. The second thing I had was, we need a comparison, just something that explains the difference between the FPA estimate of the field, as preliminary as that was versus where we are today. So who can get us that? You guys, so Myron's got that. Steve, you have a lower field drawing and there's a question about, you have a lower field drawing that
I have a drawing, but there's no estimate, just a drawing.
you should just circulate, so if I have
I have
that
my list of email.
Right. The next thing I had was Joe's point around the deletion. So, is there, as we go through this, it's easy, there's visibility now on at least the line items per building that we could talk about. If there's somebody's got a view that something is too rich for us and should be taken out. But take a look on the spreadsheets, the only place you can see the deletes are on these spreadsheets, right? In this tab, right? Is there any, from maybe Paul, David, or anyone else, is there any sense on things that have been deleted or things that are being deferred that we would argue to put back in if there's a priority?
Well, I mean, from my standpoint, I would like to see perhaps the tennis courts in the parking lot and some exterior doors at some of the locations you might consider.
But is the tennis courts a parking lot?
They're in.
I thought they're still in there, right?
We have in the initial estimate that they're taken out, there's a subtraction. The tennis courts and parking lot have been taken out.
But the diagram has them in there, so
There is a number.
There's 2 diagrams.
Two diagrams.
there's 2 pages, there's 2 versions of it.
One with, one without.
But
The
the
way
5.4 million is without the tennis court in the parking lot, or with?
That.
Without. And the 5.9 was with?
With.
But I would say, just take a look at all of the things that are now listed, like in the 5-year vision, like if we're gonna be back for a couple $100,000 of boilers, what would you do first? Would you do the tennis courts, would you do the boilers and FM Brown HB, right? That's it. Well, we look to you to sort of help prioritize some of the stuff that we leave.
Want me to do that now, John, or?
Not now. Sure. You wanna write it down?
No problem.
Well, the only question that I have, I guess for EI is, if we start putting new stuff in, how do we do that? I mean, they're basing,
Talk about because of the timing of reporting it to the state.
well, yeah, we submitted an application and they're gonna base a ROD grant to us based on what we submitted, not by anything we're adding.
Parameters. One is, we already submitted for the ROD grant, that train has left the station, we can't add to the ROD grant, so, application, so that's not on the table
But was what we've taken out here to get to this number, was that actually taken out of the ROD grant? Was
No.
it?
No.
No, what was submitted for the ROD grant application was submitted for the ROD grant application. That gives you the right to spend their money, if you will.
Right.
You don't have to spend their money, you just spend what portion of that you choose to.
But, I mean, the two things that I just mentioned were like the tennis courts and the parking lot
The tennis courts in the parking lot were
were in.
included with the application to the DOE. They are not a ROD grant application.
So we're really
They were
not talking
submitted
about
to the DOE.
putting new things in, we're just putting things that they think
Well,
that are
not
already
the
in.
field stuff, but some of the things that we may be talking about with school buildings.
Well, I don't know whether we can go away from what's already on the list. I mean, like doors and whatever.
I would say that if you wanted to add a few doors here and there within the context of the ROD grant application, you could probably do that. If you're going to add completely new scopes of work, then you would have to make a DOE application for that and get that approved before you float it to the referendum. Also bear in mind that with regard to the ROD grant money that's coming, the bond that you have to float is for the full amount. And when the money comes back to you, you can spend it on other things or you can reduce your debt, but you will have to float a bond for the full amount of the cost of the work.
So let's take a quick time out. How do I reduce the debt of the bond?
You pay it off sooner.
Aren't I paying the premium to do that?
The premium for obtaining the money, yes, you are.
I'm saying if I pay off a bond before it's called,
Yes.
I'm paying the premium.
I agree. Yeah.
That's what we did last time. Right? That's what we.
You have to negotiate that with your,
What happens if we, as a ROD grant, if we structure the bond, it's typically this kind of a call that goes out. If the call is, you know, call it sooner to pay, to use ROD grant, to pay it down, use all the ratings to do it. And it was expensive last time we looked at it, right? The finances and all that.
If we don't fix the parking lot and tennis courts now, it's okay because it's existing, it's already there. But say we fix everything but those, but then we decide to dig up those areas, do we need to remediate it because technically it's now uncovered and a known issue?
well, you would have to go through some kind of DOE, not DOE, but DEP approval. That area would have about a 2.5-foot cap, so you probably don't need to go back into the cap itself, into the material dam itself. So you probably remove the soil that's there, tap it, and then put it in the parking lot and tennis court expansion.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is kind of inspired by Steve's point, which was, you know, could say $1 million an acre, right? But in this case, if we were to remediate 99% of it, leave that one part, is it more one a headache? Two, does that limit what we can do in the future with that land? Now that we're spending $4 million or $5 million to, you know, it's like you're spending $5 million to remediate 99% of the project, but not that 1% that could actually cause.
Well, my understanding is you're not actually remediating, it depends on how you define it. Okay, what we're doing, what's being proposed is to put a cap in place.
But that's
So-
like, I guess.
So the hazardous material, you have two problems. You have a structural problem, and that's been determined to be in generally the area we're talking about. But there are isolated pockets of hazardous materials that came with the fill. And the cap allows us to have facilities on top of it and leave it in place.
Yeah, my apologies, wrong. I didn't mean to say remediate, I meant to address the issue.
Yeah, but, you know, what we would do as part of this is to do the compaction in that area. And so you would be ready to go with just stripping the topsoil off and putting the new facilities on top.
If we were to include the tennis courts and parking lot, then we could do anything we wanted after that. We could, in the parking lot, dig up the new one again, but if we don't, then if we get the parking lot, we have to get approval, we have to obviously put the same one back.
And in fact, there's a yearly reporting procedure required to do it.
Just a thought.
I just want to go back to something that maybe I misunderstood what you just said about having a bond for the full project. I mean, right now we're at $6.9 million. If we got a $2 million grant, we don't want to build a bond for $14 million.
You know, my understanding is that you have to bond for the 16.9.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I don't think
That's
so.
pretty short.
I'm sorry, I don't think that's correct.
Well, let's find out because.
Because the problem with grants in the past, now, if this grant may be different from previous grants in the past, is that the problem was that you don't always get your money from the state on time.
You're saying if we get the rod, last time we did debt service, and then we went out.
That's a different story. Debt service is a different story.
If you're awarded the rod grant, then
You
may not
deduct
have.
the rod grant from what you need to bond for.
Makes sense.
That was my experience with the previous grant. It wasn't a rod grant, but that was a previous grant.
Yeah,
And you
I
deducted
believe,
it from,
you guys should look into it, but I believe
Yeah,
that
we
this is
talked
different.
about that, I think, in finance too, because then the only issue you have is at the end, when you still haven't received all your money, you
You
have
haven't
to pay
raised- right.
contractors, then
Right.
it's,
Andrea, just
Right.
that.
right.
right.
What did she say?
She said that that's what she was pushing us toward toward debt service for that specific reason, is that you don't have all the money in the bank, you bond for 14 million, come to the end of your project, contractor wants to pay for it, state says, well, you got to prove it 10 days from Sunday that you did the work, and there's a lag between getting the money and the contractor wanting the money, in which case it can tend to be a problem. In some cases, you go out for some short-term borrowing and some, in order to cover the last.
All right, so, Jeff, we can find you. Okay. The other two items I had were, as part, maybe part of the December 4th security meeting, but some evaluation on the breakdown of the cost of the cameras. In that technology budget, if you go to, there's a page on that, here. Second. One that folds out.
The technology is after the slide. Or are you looking for technology?
Yeah, it's too,
Joe, what's in that
This one.
worksheet?
yeah, this one here, so what this one says is, this one is the one that totals up security at $995,000, right? Is that out?
It's, for everybody else, it's, in the tab that's presentation after slide 6. It folds out.
So what it has in there is it adds up to $995,000, but the cameras alone is listed as $750,000. So the question is, how does that, how do you get how that cost breaks down? Well, not by school so much, but it strikes me that there's probably some steps in there, like, if you get X number of cameras, and then you reach this price point. And otherwise, they're pretty expensive cameras, right? $750,000 for the cameras, I mean, 3/4 of the cost of the whole thing is cameras.
Well,
$3,100
but
please.
it includes the
That
mounting
was the question
hardware,
before.
software, wiring.
That's what I'm saying, so there's a
You
certain
want
cost you're gonna do
something.
anyway, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, the marginal cost of cameras, if you have a base cost that we're gonna go through,
Have that?
I don't have.
This
I don't
includes
have it here.
installation?
No, but you'll
Yes.
ask Brian.
Absolutely.
That wasn't the same number of cameras that, I don't think, that the Cornelia was suggesting.
So the drawings show about 140-something cameras, but this spreadsheet, but this includes all the indoor,
There was a little bit of a timing issue, and we knew that when I sent this out to the board, we knew that there was a difference. There was a timing issue between when we met with ProMedia and what we had told Mylan Associates. So they had their drawings done, and, I mean, they had all the boards done, they given me copies of all the drawings of the buildings for you, so that it didn't make sense to rework everything. But after the security meeting, then we're gonna tighten everything up. So if we needed to redo drawings and where they're gonna go, we could do that. This budget worksheet will definitely change, because the assumption is that the numbers are gonna come down.
Right.
So,
So right now, we have 239 cameras budgeted, but that was the administration
Right,
threw those in as kind of the worst case.
right.
But after the security meeting, then there's someone with more knowledge than me, for sure, maybe you guys, as to how many cameras we should really, because that's the line, like John's point, that's what's driving the cost of the security project. So do we really need all these cameras?
So every 30 cameras is close to 100K.
Get $3,100 a piece.
Okay. And lastly, have the principals, it would be good to get the principals to go through this and make sure that, as the owners of the buildings that signed off, and say, yeah, that works for me.
We're gonna email this to them tomorrow morning.
Anything else anybody wants to have as a takeaway?
Yeah, just one, it's a minor thing, I don't know, but there's a spreadsheet in here, I think, that the film, the window film, so it's not bulletproof film,
It's not bulletproof, it's shatterproof. It's made specifically for this, to slow somebody down.
so it was taken out, isn't it out of the budget?
It's not part of,
Oh, we take that out, I don't,
that's part of the cost of the vestibules, I believe.
Yeah, we never took it out.
Regular security.
Yeah, I'm referring to the spreadsheet.
yeah, I'm not,
It's this one here, it's on after the, looks like this,
okay.
at the bottom, window film. And then it says revised estimate is 0. I don't know what that means. It's not included in the 16. If I add up those numbers, there's no spot that adds up to, helps add that up to 16.95.
Paul, Steve is referring to the worksheet where we did all the projects by subcategory, energy security.
Yeah, I didn't remember spreadsheets, I can't speak for that.
There's a column that says revised estimate on it, so I don't know if everybody else has their binder, if they can look at that.
Yeah, it's the only one that's blank. Right? That's the one.
Yeah, it's the one at the very bottom is blank.
So I don't know, if it were not blank, what would it be? Do we know that number?
Okay. Not offhand.
Is that big or little?
Yeah, I don't think we pulled that out.
So it sounds like the right answer is we'll forget that.
Yeah, so the estimator just has to let us know where in those DOE documents where that number is. And I guess if he could refer back to the document that EI sent us on August 29th, that would be the easiest place to determine where it is.
This one?
Yeah, that would be the first column, so it's somewhere in there.
I think it's embedded somewhere, I couldn't find it.
It is embedded somewhere, and I'm not sure where that is. It may be in that vestibule number. You know, originally you had a
original
security number, and then we pulled out the vestibule number. Check and see where that was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We can get into the rest of our meeting. Tonight, next thing we have the formal reporting of election results.
So, election that took place on November 5th for 2 board seats that are a term of 3 years. There were 10,442 registered voters. 4,527 votes were cast. The turnout was about 43%. Votes received for the 2 board seats with a term of 3 years are as follows. 1,080 votes cast for Mr. Glenn Elliott, 1,442 votes cast for Mr. Michael Eunice, 1,553 votes cast for Mr. James Day, 948 votes cast for Mrs. Judith DiNapoli. There were 20 write-in votes. The top 2 vote getters are Mr. Day and Mr. Eunice to fill the 2 board seats. The 2 board members will be sworn in the first meeting in January. And those new board meeting dates have not been set yet.
January, that is the first.
Oh, is it set? I'm sorry.
January 7th.
Is it? Okay. You have to do it within the first day, 10 days of January, so. Okay.
Any discussion items? Let's do committee reports. We have one committee report, buildings and grounds, but this was really this, right? Okay. Superintendent's report?
I only have 3 things. One is I'd like to make an announcement that is another It's an amazing accomplishment for our high school, for the district, that we were listed as on the National AP Honor Roll for the second year in a row. Not many districts have done this. There are only 477 school districts in the entire United States and Canada that have received this honor. This honor goes to districts that were able to increase opportunity while increasing scores of 3 or better. So it's really an amazing accomplishment for the district. It was something that the Board of Education put a lot of energy into several years back, and this is the result of that. So I think it's really an amazing feat, and we put out a press release to the newspapers. It's also on our website, so if anybody would like to see more information about it or has questions, I'd be happy to answer any of those. But again, that's an amazing, I think it's an amazing accomplishment. We also have, I put something out to the board members the other day in a packet that was where we have a camp from the West Coast that wants to expand to the East Coast and picked Brookdale School as a site that they would like to come to rent out in the summer. They need our basement floor and 4 classrooms, and they'll give us $30,000 plus expenses. So it seems like a pretty good opportunity. I wanted to just talk about it to the board to see what your take was on that. It is time sensitive, because if we don't do it, they're just going to find somebody else, which is okay. But I thought that it was something that we should take advantage of. There's great references, and they really expanded to they're expanding to high wealth areas. They feel they can draw from neighboring towns. They're also going to employ our teachers, and they're going to offer discounts to our people. So it's a positive thing for everyone. It's also
It's academically oriented, what is it that they do?
They do various things. Like one of the things would be like film production. They have this whole film studio for the students. They have, it's not as academically oriented like in the traditional sense like an algebra class. It's academically oriented, but it's more of an enrichment program, like I said, like a film studio. Any supplies that they purchase, they're going to sell to us if we want them at a reduced cost. You know, like if they buy 20 iPads, they'll offer them to us at a reduced cost because they don't want to ship them back to the West Coast. It seems like a pretty good opportunity. Another thing is, at the end, they contract out or they hire our people to clean the building because they're using the building through the summer, so it's obviously costs us a little bit of a time crunch at the end. But they'll either do one or the other. Either they'll give us the money to do it on our own, or they'll take care of it with an outside vendor.
Isn't there a camp from the West Coast?
Yeah.
So what was it about Little Brookdale School in Little Verona, New Jersey that appealed to them?
What they said to me was, it's located centrally in a high wealth area, meaning I think that they could draw from surrounding towns also, like from Upper Montclair, Essex Fells, Old Caldwell, Verona, in that surrounding area. So they said strategically they like that. They like the fact that it was listed as a school, it was listed on that last honor roll that came out from the state. They felt like it was a prestigious place for them. They really like the layout where you can come in and have the playground in the back, but everything's kind of on the one floor out there. So that was what they told us when they came out. They also really liked working with Rich and myself because we were, obviously very interested. Not everybody's always, some districts aren't that interested in these things. I just like them because I think it helps us bring in some revenue to try to bolster our, maintenance budget or technology budget, whatever we can do.
Can they guarantee that no Verona student will be turned away because of the space available? I don't know what the capacity is, but can they guarantee that every Verona student who wants to go can go?
I can ask them that. They're pretty established. They have their policies and stuff. It's all around the West Coast. And
that's a problem with, Verona students trying to sign up and saying, well, you got turned away because I'm keeping them on their one.
Well, that's interesting. One of the things they said was they're going to have this drop-in program, which is pretty interesting, a different type. You can either sign up for the program, or you can buy a card with like 10 visits and you can do a drop-off. So that was, I think, was a pretty cool idea. And the fact that they're going to employ our people, offer discounts to our people, things like that, I thought that was a pretty good opportunity. She also said that if we identify a few people that are of need, that she'll work with them and let them, attend. So it seemed like a good opportunity, plus it was $30,000.
Do we have any track record? Do they have come with references?
Yes. They're pretty well established on the West Coast and in Chicago, in that area. So we have letters of reference. I will call up for some more references just to make sure that they're legit, but I'd like to move forward with it, get a lease and then bring it to the board for approval.
But the terms of payment, how much do we get up in front? And how
All
much-
that, yeah. They actually, I put that in the last packet. It said half the money up front and then the other half when they start. So it seemed like a pretty good deal. We are moving forward with the other program where we have a preschool that's gonna rent out one room in Brookdale for $2,000 a month. So that lease is in your packet.
How did you deal with the,
That's a
board
board.
design?
I'm sorry.
That one is that's the executive kids.
Right, that's the executive.
Yeah, no one did you deal with the full over the summer?
No, because they're in the summer, she's gonna go back to
Okay.
where she goes. Right now, it's so small that, like, she's talking about having 5 kids. So it was so small that I don't think it's gonna be a real big, issue with us, having 5 additional kids. Also, great thing about the executive kids, she's offering our employees a 20% discount. So these are our people that are already going to executive kids, so if they switch over to Brookdale, they're gonna get a 20% discount. So I think that was a great thing. So that's on your list of approvals. Those were the 3 things I really wanted to talk about, or those 3 rentals. But with the board's consent, I want to move forward with the lease for the Kate and Steve's camp.
Let's go on to resolutions.
Do we want to do them all together, including the amendments? The only change on here is on resolution number 2.4, the leave of absence. That should indicate that it's an unpaid medical leave of absence. Resolved that the board approve resolutions number 1 through 19 and addendum resolutions number 1 and 2.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Marino, seconded by Mr. Yunus, Mr. Early. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. On 15, Cheryl, that you're transferring, you transfer money from one account into another account? I guess presumably because you're not going to spend as much as you thought in the one account, and you're going to spend more than you thought in the new account.
Right.
Okay. So I just, you said, I think, I don't know if this was in the packet, but the elementary curriculum, why would we move $32,000 out of an elementary curriculum account?
It wasn't classified in the right account. So there's a string of account numbers there, like you'll see. I can probably tell you exactly the number. The one number is 11-190-100-890, and it went to a 610 account because it's really supplies. So it's just a reclassification. So the money is...
So that amount should appear in a different account?
Yeah, and I think you should see that there. You'll see the same...
No, transfer to reference number 52?
Yeah.
On the number, thank you, Cheryl. On number 18 and 19, I'm just suggesting that we table these, because we don't have to do this, right? Unless I'm misunderstanding what their role is. Right? Aren't they really only germane to our district if we pass the referendum?
Well, the bond council will have to start doing work starting January, because there's some timeline. I don't know if you were copied on that email, but she put together a timeline of things that had to happen on certain dates. So she being Andrea Conn with McMahon in Scotland, their work would have to start in January. And that is a definite need, is the bond council.
So they start before we have had a referendum?
Right. But you'll see, items A, B, and C, they break it out for each step on the services they provide. So,
So A is for preparation.
Right,
And then
Which-
say it didn't happen, CNC would be.
right, so our exposure would be 5,000.
Exposure's 5,000,
Right.
okay. What's our exposure to 19 to Phoenix? I read through their proposal, and it's not clear to me that they're gonna do all this stuff. Financial modeling, right, they're gonna help market the referendum. We really need to develop a rating agency strategy. I'm sure these are just boxes that they check, but what's our exposure? Is it all $15,000?
I think the exposure with Phoenix is the interest rate that we're gonna get from the bond, if it's not marketed and sold, because the interest rate is struck through an auction.
Right.
But what does Phoenix do that, what is it, Angela,
Angela structures the bonds. I'm sorry, Andrea structures the
Andrea.
bonds, right? Phoenix would market the bonds to make sure that there's bids on them. Because they're gonna
They would help you, they help you obtain a firm that will market the bond. They will evaluate, they'll put out a proposal for another financial advisor who will actually do the marketing, but they will evaluate all the proposals and pick the one that they feel is the best, and
Essentially the other way.
would do the best job. You would not spend $15,000 if the bond issue didn't go through. I don't know exactly what their exposure is, but you would not be referendum didn't pass. Then you wouldn't need anybody to market bonds, because there would be no bond sale.
So I can, we can table that, and then I can get them to break it down.
Yeah.
You know,
Or
by
it's
project.
not a total.
I mean, I would just hate to spend, okay, so 5,000, that's not a lot, but if we added all of this, if I add all these up, including Phoenix, so we're spending 15 grand and then have the thing go down, that would be a shame. But,
We can table it, and then we'll put it back on for December 10th. I'll get them to break it down.
Yeah, well, if I know, I won't be here December 10th, unfortunately, but if you're all convinced that we need to contract with them ex ante the referendum, then, yeah, by all means.
So, how do we want to handle that one?
Let's go through another motion, because the motion is through 18, right? We'll move and second that, and then we'll table and answer, right?
Right.
Tabling that, again.
We're going to table 19 then?
Yep.
Okay.
You need a motion to take the motion at this point, but
Right.
it's already been moved.
Okay. Resolve that the board table resolution number 19.
So move.
Okay, moved by Mr. Swell, second by Mr. Yunus. Any questions? Okay, we'll call roll on that.
Okay. We didn't call the roll on the other one, but I'll do both. So,
What do you got to do 19 first?
Get it all over.
okay. So then we're going to go back and do, ask for a
Are
motion on,
we doing voting separately on 18?
No.
no, separately on 19.
18's included in the,
Just-
19,
We did a motion and a second on the, you know,
motion to table.
what's that?
On the motion to table.
all in favor?
Okay. Okay. Mr. Elliott,
This is the motion table, correct?
to table 19, right? Mr. Sparta?
Aye.
Mr. Polino?
Yeah.
Mr. Yunus?
Aye.
Mr. Quattrochi?
Aye.
Resolved that the board approve resolutions 1 through 18 and addendums 1 and 2.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Swell, second by Mr. Elliott. Any other questions?
I just want to acknowledge number 12, for the donation from Enviroscape, valued at $1,000.
Let's call roll.
Mr. Elliott? Mr. Sparta?
Aye.
Mr. Polino?
Yeah.
Mr. Yunus?
Aye.
Mr. Quattrochi?
Aye. Okay, the board will be going into public session, so we'll call that resolution after public comment.
Private session?
Sorry?
Private session.
He's a public session. Yeah. Do we have any public question or comment? they were rotted and they need to be removed, they will be replaced.
Those, I think those were the trees that, some of them were damaged in the storm last fall, and have to be taken.
All right, and I'd like to know what the process was to determine the removal of those trees, and was an arborist involved in that process?
I'm not sure of the exact title, but I know we had a consultant that came in and did it with us, but we can get that answer for you.
All right, that'd be great, thank you. And what is the plan to replace those trees?
We're working with the local nursery on coming up with a plan of how, what kind of plants to put in there, what kind of trees.
Okay.
And if you wanted to be involved in that process, you absolutely can do that.
By what means, by what means?
We'll hook you up with the Director of Buildings and Grounds who was here earlier. He's
Okay.
left.
Okay.
He's here for the presentation, and then you certainly can be a part of that.
All right, that's great.
Okay.
If you don't mind, stick around and I'll get your phone number.
All right, that's great.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
That way you don't have to read it on the, TV.
Anyone else? Question or comment? Okay. Our next board meeting will be on December 10th. It's our only meeting in December. Confidential session at 7 o'clock, public meeting at 8. One other thing, presentations that we have on here. So there's a bunch of these, there's 5 presentations here. Just conscious of how many of these we're gonna be able to do in one night. So we have, the audit is probably timely.
Shouldn't be that time.
Timely being not time consuming,
Not
timely
time
we need to do.
consuming, right.
We could.
Yeah, we have to do the audit. That has to
Can we
happen.
do the,
We can move the HIB, we cannot move the HIB, that has to be done. We can move anything else.
can we do the audit and the fall athletics? And then in January, do the curriculum update?
Sure. And I have to do the HIB, so I'll do the curriculum update, the strategic plan update, because they're kind of together.
Yeah, do those in January, right? So we're gonna do audit, athletics, and HIB in December.
Yep. That's fine.
Everybody okay with that?
Just because the code calls for us to do the HIB.
Okay, so we have to do, number 20?
Right. Resolved that the board meet in private session from which the public shall be excluded to discuss the topics of negotiations and personnel or potential litigation if private discussions being held pursuant to sections 70 and 8 of the Open Public Meeting Act. Matters under discussion will be disclosed to the public as soon as final decisions are made and voted upon. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?